Production and broadcast costs for Sedgwick County Commission meetings have been underwritten by Sedgwick County. KPTS welcomes comments from the public on its broadcast of the County Commission hearings. Viewers are invited to write to County Commission Broadcast, KPTS, 320 West 21st Street, Wichita, Kansas, 67203.
Good morning. I'm Christy Zukovich. Welcome to the April 8th Sedgwick County Commission meeting. We are glad you're joining us this morning, and of course we use this time before the meeting begins to let you know about activities going on around Sedgwick County. And commissioners, coming up at Intrust Bank Arena, they have a busy event schedule for the next few days. They will have the Thunder Hockey in action on the 8th, 10th, and 11th, and Jason Aldean in concert tomorrow night. And, you know, I'm pretty sure there's an activity coming up at the end of the month that you all are going to be interested in. It's that bull riding event. So if you haven't gotten your tickets, I think you all are all primed up for the action. So go online, check it out, see if your calendar is free. We do want to make sure that you and all of our folks are aware that there is the potential for severe weather. And, of course, we have information on our website from Emergency Management, how to prepare for any kind of disaster, how to make sure that you prepare a kit, make a plan, know where to go to get information. Remember that the outside sirens are not your primary warning device. So if you're relying on a siren when you're indoors to know if something's coming, that's probably not your best choice. Tune in to local media. Got lots of friends in the back there. They are good partners. Help us make sure we're aware. But, you know, it's quiz day. No fooling. Last week we were kind of fooling around, I hope. But we're going to say happy birthday to Exploration Place. We're going to do a little virtual birthday cake here today because that's always better, and the health people are here, and that makes us all feel more conscious that it's virtual cake. We're going to go in order. So, Commissioner Unruh, you're up first, and we're going to have a little quiz, and I want you to determine the best answer before you decide what your decision is going to be. Got it? Everybody clear? Okay. Early donors to build Exploration Place were, from the aviation community, Velma Wallace, Walter and Olive Ann Beach, Mrs. Heber Beardmore, Oliver and Betty Elliott, Koch Industry and Fred C. and Mary R. Koch Foundation, the Kansas Legislature, and all of the above.
Well, I think this is a good time to express once again our appreciation to good community partners and say D, all of the above.
All of the above. It was clearly a different time back in the 1990s, but all of those folks were able to contribute. Even our friends at the Kansas Legislature saw how important that was. So, all right, Commissioner Norton.
Is there a reason why Commissioner Unruh got the big mouth?
I didn't want to put it on your page.
We need to talk after the meeting.
I love you, man. I love you.
I love you too. More than my luggage.
Okay. Here we go. The architect Moshe Safdie designed other buildings including the Kauffman Center for the Performing Arts in Kansas City, Missouri, Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in Bentonville, Arkansas, the Salt Lake City Main Public Library, Salt Lake City, Utah, all of the above.
Well, I happen to have been to all of those other places, and they're amazing architecture. And obviously, you've prompted me to say A, B, and C.
Yes. And D.
Maybe.
Okay. I'm going to move on. Commissioner Peterjohn, I've tried to make it real easy for you. On behalf of the community in the early 1990s, Sedgwick County contributed $1 million, $3 million, $10 million, or $20 million for Exploration Place.
Well, you won't get me diverted from my answer here. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we're still paying a little over $1 million a year in principal and interest payments on Exploration Place, too. But item D is correct.
That is correct. And you see, we have our logo there connected with it, so we are a proud partner for Exploration Place. All right, Commissioner Howell, we're going to jump. We always keep the chairman, even if he's not the chairman. He's still always going to be. We kind of use him as cleanup. So the wind wall, and you're an aviation guy, so you know this, is a 40-foot wall of silver discs that create wind patterns. There are 200,000 discs, 250,000, 300,000, or 350,000 discs.
That might be my favorite room in the entire facility. And I'll tell you what, I wish it was 500,000, but I'm going to go with D because it's the biggest numbers.
It is D, and it is fascinating to just stand and be mesmerized and watch that. But can you imagine being the guy who's like, 1, 2. All right, here we go. We're going to clean it up here. Everybody's got it, so there's no pressure on you.
Oh, yeah. D.
The groundbreaking was held January 1st, 1998, December 25th, 1997, July 4th, 1997, or May 31st, 1997.
That's my final answer.
D is it.
Yeah.
It is D. We are celebrating. Well, I kind of hoped the others would be kind of giveaways that nobody would show up on a holiday.
Yeah.
So May 31st it was. We are celebrating their 15th birthday this weekend. They will have special activities. Hope folks will go out and enjoy Exploration Place. Great facility, great to be down by the river, great things to do with your family. So, again, a shout out to Jan and her team at Exploration Place. We do have a busy agenda, Commissioners. We have proclamations today for National Service Recognition Day, National Public Health Week, Autism Awareness Month. We have a number of folks who are being appointed to boards. We also have some annexation and de-annexation, so lots of important business. Chairman Ranzau, I bet you can decide to get us going.
I think so. Thank you very much, Christy. With that, we'll call to order the meeting, the regular meeting of the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners for April 8th, 2015. Madam Clerk, first item.
Invocation to be led by Reverend David Carter, First Unitarian Universalist Church. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Beloved God, in your holy presence and filled with your divine grace, with confidence we invoke your blessings on this gathering, on the commissioners, that they be successful in their commission of bringing peace and prosperity to all in the county. Black, white, red, yellow, and brown, LBTGQI, all here. May they succeed in bringing peace and prosperity to them. And may they feel enlivened and blessed in their commission. Lord, as we lead ourselves through life, may we remember that every leader is indeed called upon to be a servant. May we regard each other and value each other as you regard each and every one of us, with unconditional love. We're confident of your blessings. We're grateful for the ultimate blessing of life and opportunity. Thank you. And amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend, very much for being here today. Madam Clerk, next item.
Roll call. Commissioner Unruh.
Present.
Commissioner Norton.
Present.
Commissioner Howell.
Present.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Present.
Chairman Ransall.
Present. Next item, please.
Consideration of minutes. Item A. Regular meeting of January 21st, 2015. All commissioners were present.
Commissioners, you have the agenda item before you. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the regular meeting minutes of January 21st, February 4th, and February 11th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Chairman Ransall.
Aye. Next item, please.
Proclamations. Item D. Proclamation declaring National Service Recognition Day.
Commissioners, I have the following proclamation to read into the record. Whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central to how we meet our challenges, and where AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants address the most pressing challenges facing our communities, from educating students for the jobs of the 21st century by supporting veterans and military families, to providing health services and helping communities recover from natural disasters. And whereas AmeriCorps and Senior Corps participants serve in more than 60,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organization who are so vital to our economic and social well-being. And whereas National Service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by taking an intensive commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Richard Ransall, Chairman of the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim April 7, 2015 as National Service Recognition Day, and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our county, to thank those who serve, and find ways to give back to their communities. And I think we have Kathy Hanneman from the Mental Health Association here. Is that correct? Thank you. Actually, before we go, Madam Clerk, call the vote. Oh, wait. What's the will of the board?
Motion to adopt the resolution.
Okay.
Second.
Call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Chairman Ransall.
Aye. Nay.
Thank you so much for the proclamation. I am Kathy Hanneman with the Senior Companion Program, one of the Senior Corps programs that serves in the communities of Sedgwick County as well as Harvey and Butler counties. We also are here to represent AmeriCorps and all the other programs that are funded by the Corporation for National and Community Services. And we thank you very much for the assistance that the Sedgwick County Department on Aging provides us to be able to serve homebound people in these communities, saving the county and taxpayers many, many dollars as we provide a free service for those who are homebound. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item E, proclamation declaring National Public Health Week.
Commissioners, I have the following proclamation to read into the record. Whereas the week of April 6 to 12, 2015 is the National Public Health Week, and this year's theme promotes a goal of making the U.S. the healthiest nation in one generation by 2030. And whereas one's health is affected by many things, including individual decisions, culture, environment, social influences, and access to health care. And whereas individuals can improve their health by choosing a healthy diet, maintaining an active lifestyle, receiving annual immunizations and preventive checkups, and preparing their families and homes for emergency situations. And whereas everyday public health officials work tirelessly to reinforce these messages and do their part to influence change. And whereas one of the Sedgwick County Health Department's public health champions, Dr. Dorn Frederickson, passed away in 2008 after dedicating his life to improving the health of the Sedgwick County community. And whereas his legacy and that of many other public health champions, such as Jack Brown, are commemorated through the Dorn Frederickson Lifetime Commitment to Public Health Award. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Richard Ranzau, Chairman of the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, do hereby recognize April 6 through 12, 2015 as National Public Health Week in Sedgwick County, and invite Adrian Burnlutz, Director of Sedgwick County Health Department, to come forward for the presentation of this year's award. But first,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adopt the proclamation.
Second.
Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh,
Aye.
Commissioner Norton,
Aye.
Commissioner Howell,
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn,
Aye.
Chairman Ranzau.
Aye.
Good morning, Commissioners and Board of Health. It is my pleasure to be here today as we celebrate National Public Health Week and present the Dorn Frederickson Lifetime Commitment to Public Health Award to Jack Brown. For nearly 20 years, the American Public Health Association has brought together communities across the United States to observe National Public Health Week as a time to recognize contributions of public health and highlight issues that are important to improving our nation. This year's theme rallies around a goal of making the United States the healthiest nation in one generation by 2030. National Public Health Week is a good time to draw attention to the work of public health professionals and their critical role in creating a healthier America. Locally, we will utilize this opportunity to embrace the work of dedicated public health professionals in the community by awarding the Dr. Dorn Frederickson Lifetime Commitment to Public Health Award to an individual who has demonstrated a passion of improving community health similar to the dedication Dr. Frederickson showed to the community during his life. We are delighted to be joined by Dr. Frederickson's parents today, as well as many of Mr. Brown's colleagues, family, and friends. In over his 30 years of experience, Jack has made and continues to make significant contributions to the health of all Kansans. Jack's extraordinary contributions as a public health professional are far too many to share today, so I'll just review a few. Jack earned his undergraduate degree from Friends University in Wichita, Kansas. Following graduation, he was invited to attend the University of Southern California Graduate School for Environmental Management to receive a special certification. At this time, this program was one of the few of its kind in existence. He then returned to Wichita, where he earned a Master's of Urban Affairs degree from Wichita State University. Jack was also part of one of the first groups of environmental health professionals in Kansas to become a registered sanitarian. Jack's career at the Wichita Sedgwick County Health Department of Community Health began in 1970. During his tenure, he managed several environmental programs until his appointment as the Environmental Health Director to the Wichita Sedgwick County Department of Community Health. He also served as interim director for this organization on 2 different occasions. As director of the largest Department of Environmental Health in the state of Kansas, he established and administered local programs in water quality, pollution prevention, food protection, air quality, and emergency response, just to name a few. Most notably, Jack was the project manager of one of the nation's most innovative environmental projects, which addressed the risk associated with groundwater contamination, more commonly known as the Gilbert-Moseley Project. This resulted in the construction and establishment of the Water Center in Wichita, which serves as a groundwater remediation and environmental education center for the community. This project received national recognition from the Harvard University's Kennedy School of Government and several others. Jack continues to develop and work on projects in the community that assess groundwater contamination and its effects on the public. Jack helped organize and hold the Arkansas River Summit in 2000, which resulted in the Arkansas River Study that examined the water quality and bacterial contamination levels of the river. This study resulted in the development of an advisory system and other local programs to inform the public about health implications related to water conditions, as well as a plan to address water quality issues related to the Arkansas River. Throughout his career, Jack has established and served on numerous committees such as the Air Quality Improvement Task Force, OxyChem Community Involvement Group, Wichita Chamber of Commerce Environmental Committee, and the Wichita Initiative to Renew Their Environment, also known as WIRE. This project was funded by an EPA CARE grant, which led to several environmental projects in our community. Two of the larger projects included North High School and the Keeper of the Plains Rain Gardens. Since he resigned from the city of Wichita, Jack's love for environmental health has been spent sharing his knowledge with students at the University of Kansas Master of Public Health program. Jack began teaching the very first environmental health class in the history of the program in 1995 and remains a research professor of the university to date. He is still often seen taking advantage of students on road trips to local environmental agencies such as the water plant, sewage treatment plant, and the household hazardous water facility. His class is still revered as one of the favorites of many of the MPH students. An avid bicyclist and proud member of the Geezers Riding Club, Jack has served most recently as the chairperson of the Bike Pedestrian Advisory Board as part of Wichita Master Bicycle Plan. Jack was a longtime friend and colleague of Dr. Fredrickson, and if Dr. Fredrickson were here today, he would agree that Jack was a very deserving recipient of this award.
Well, I don't know how to follow that up. I've forgotten a lot of those things that I've done. But good morning, Commissioners, County Manager. Adrian, thank you very much. It's really an honor to receive this recognition. I was quite surprised and grateful when Adrian approached me at a meeting and said that I'd been selected to receive the award. So I'd like to offer my gratitude and thanks to all those involved in the nomination process, the selection process, and a special thanks to Ron and Pat, Mr. and Mrs. Fredrickson, who are here in the audience, my wife Dana, who's here, and then many current and former colleagues that are in the audience. Yes, my career actually spanned over 40 years. During that time, I worked with many dedicated individuals, and without their help and support, I wouldn't be here, standing here, to receive that award. I worked over the years with the Sedgwick County Health Department, the Wichita Sedgwick County Health Department, the Department of Natural Resources with the county, and KDHE and the Environmental Protection Agency. I also really am proud of the students that I've had in the MPH program, and over the years the MPH program, the Master of Public Health program, has evolved excuse me, and now offers a concentration in the field of environmental health. We always need to remember that environmental health is part of the public health infrastructure. In closing, I'd like to say that it was a pleasure to work with Doran. We were friends and colleagues. Initially, we worked on many public health initiatives. I with the health department, he with the KU Med School. When I went over to the med school, we continued our work in visioneering and a number of other projects. I really miss Doran. It is an honor to receive this award bearing his name, and I'd like to thank his parents and thank you all.
Commissioner Norton.
Congratulations, Jack. You know, it's such an honor to be able to work with folks that have toiled away behind the scenes many times on issues that are critically important to the health of our community. And you and I have crossed paths in many kind of health department meetings, environmental meetings, other meetings, and I so honor your years of service and what you've done for the public health of our community. So congratulations, Dave. Very well deserved.
Thank you very much.
I go past that, Doran Frederickson was also a friend of mine, but he was also a mentor as I first became a county commissioner, and we started the process of thinking about public health and how Sedgwick County expanded that role, maybe moved it away from the city-county split kind of thing and made it a full county health department. Doran was that person that continued to whisper in my ear and give me guidance on how we did that, and he was a good mentor for all the county commissioners at that time. He made such a profound difference in our community and to the thought process about the Board of Health, what our responsibilities are, and what public health can really do for the strength of a community. I've often said, if you don't have your health, not much else matters. And Doran really believed that for the whole population of our community. Ron and Pat, it's so great to see you and have you here to continue the legacy of your son, who so profoundly affected our community for so long. Congratulations, Jack.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Item F, proclamation declaring Autism Awareness Month.
Commissioners, I have the following proclamation to read into the record. Whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports the prevalence of autism has risen to 1 in every 68 children in the United States, roughly 60% higher than the estimate for 2006. Autism spectrum disorder is the fastest growing developmental disability in the United States, affecting over 3.5 million individuals. And whereas the lifelong nature of autism requires a variety of assistance and supports at different points in an individual's life, with early identification and intervention being critical. And whereas a number of public and private organizations strive to provide quality care and services to children and adults with autism, building on their strengths and helping them to develop the skills they need to live as independently as possible. And whereas locally, over 40 Sedgwick County affiliated service providers work to assist individuals with developmental disabilities maximize their potential and achieve greater independence. And whereas Autism Awareness Month is an opportunity to recognize the contributions of individuals with autism who have thrived and excelled in Sedgwick County communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Richard Ranzall, Chairman of the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim April 2015 as Autism Awareness Month. Commissioners, what's the will of the Board?
I move we adopt the proclamation.
Second.
Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh,
Aye.
Commissioner Norton, Commissioner Howell,
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn,
Aye.
Chairman Ransall.
Aye. We have Jeanette Livingston with the CDDO here today to receive the proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Commissioners. Jeanette Livingston, with Assistant Director of the Sedgwick County Developmental Disability Organization. It was about 20 years ago this month that Governor Bill Graves signed into law the Developmental Disabilities Reform Act. This landmark legislation codified our system's commitment to ensuring that folks with autism and other developmental disabilities are able to contribute and thrive within our community. And I'm pleased to have here this morning Ms. Rachel Bergman and Aldana Carney to tell their stories. Before I do that, I did want to ask if I could recognize some of the folks that are in the audience today to support the proclamation. We have, if they could please stand. We have folks from our Developmental Disability Advisory Board, as well as community service providers and staff from the CDDO. We all appreciate all the work you guys do. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Rachel Bergman. Sorry. I have 5 cute, fun, energetic boys. My second son, Matt.
Sure. That's okay. Thank you. It's much harder than it looks.
We know.
Oh, yeah. I understand. Rachel's son, Matthew, we have a picture on the monitor. So hello and thank you today for having us here today. Ms. Bergman has 5 cute, fun, and energetic boys. Her second son is Matt, who is 11, and he was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. Matt requires one-on-one attention at school and at home. He elopes and is very compulsive. He has no sense of danger, and for his safety, I have locks on as many things as possible. He has received the most beneficial services from respite care. Matt is nonverbal and doesn't initiate communication. Having a respite worker with Matt has been such a blessing. I've been able to go to the park with all my boys and not worry about Matt running off or getting, taken by a stranger. We are able to play at All-Star Sports and quickly learn Matt's favorite things to do was the 2-seater go-karts. Just being able to cook garlic bread and walk to the pantry without worrying if Matt is going to open the oven because he loves garlic bread and has no idea he has to wait till it's done and to cool off. Ms. Bergman is able to help her other boys with homework while Matt is getting help with brushing his teeth and checking his schedule. The respite workers are able to give Matt the one-on-one attention he needs to redirect him from things like tipping furniture, pulling up carpet, dumping trash on or clothes on the floor, chewing on Legos, or making huge messes with food. Matt has been able to spend some time at Rainbow's Kids Cove and will have the opportunity to attend camp. Another helpful thing that was provided was his iPad with a communication app called Prologo. He wears it daily and enjoys using his voice to tell us if he wants to watch a certain movie, if he wants French toast or chicken, or what restaurant he wants to go to. He is still in the process of learning, but has far exceeded any thoughts I have had about him communicating. I'd like to thank everybody involved, and a special thanks to Matt's case manager, Melissa, who is here today, from Rainbows United for all the guidance she has given me for Matt. Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners and everyone. My name is Aldana Carney, and my husband, Pat, we've been blessed with 5 children. Our youngest child, Neil, is a 20-year-old young man with severe autism. In addition to autism, Neil has been diagnosed with MR, OCD, ADHD, and pica. And pica means he eats non-edible items. It is not uncommon for people with autism to be diagnosed with other disorders. Neil requires 24/7 round-the-clock care to keep him safe and healthy. He needs help with all levels of very intimate care, such as dressing, bathing, shaving, and cleaning him up after he uses the bathroom. Neil is also in the subset group of people with autism who self-abuse and are aggressive towards others. Autism varies a great deal in severity and is the fastest-growing disability in America. There is still no known cure for autism, and people with autism live an average lifespan. If we proceed at the current levels of awareness, funding, and interest, the economic impact to such a large number of individuals throughout their lifespan will be devastating. Not to mention the enormous toll raising a child with autism has on our entire family. The divorce rate is approximately 80% when raising a child with autism. Our family, like many families who have children and adults with autism, are well aware of what it is like to live in crisis. We struggle day in and day out to secure appropriate services for our son, and we couldn't do it without the help we receive from service providers and respite workers. Take a breath. A few years ago, our family was in a crisis situation because Neil was on an antipsychotic drug that was no longer effective. Neil was having intense, out-of-control rage, attacking me and his other caregivers. He was also very self-abusive and pulled out his own adult tooth, retinol, while in a rage. I felt like we were in a very hopeless and helpless situation. I recall one very dark night when I felt I could no longer take the constant stress. My thoughts went to ending my own life. Thankfully, I reached out and I called the suicide prevention hotline, and I talked to a very kind lady who listened, and she was my angel. I also prayed a lot. I have never publicly talked about that night because it's so difficult to think about how desperate I felt then. I feel compelled to talk now, to express how difficult it is to deal with all the pressures of living with a child with disabilities and maintain a normal family life. The next day I reached out to Neil's case manager and the Sedgwick County CDDO for help. I spoke with Heather from the CDDO, who was both compassionate and helpful. We started the ball rolling to get Neil and our family the help needed to not live in the constant state of crisis. I will be forever grateful to the Sedgwick County CDDO and the help they offered. Our family is thankful for the respite providers that help us function day to day. Without respite for Neil, I wasn't able to make a family dinner or attend any of the other kids' activities. I can't take a shower or use the bathroom unless someone is watching Neil because he is an extreme flight risk. We have learned to celebrate the little triumph that Neil achieves because they are huge for him and us. Some examples are teaching Neil to wave goodbye and toilet training. It took a couple of years to teach Neil to wave goodbye, and to this day he has a one-finger wave. And I'm just thankful it's his pointer finger and not the middle finger, because it won't change. We worked for 12 years with Neil's school teachers, Rainbows, and all of his caregivers to potty train Neil. And when we finally succeeded, we threw a big, finally potty trained party to celebrate. I have no doubt that Neil has shaped our family unit and made us stronger. We are better people and strong advocates because he is part of our family and the Sedgwick County community. There is still a need to educate the community on the characteristics of autism so we can help people with autism be accepted and included in our community. My heartfelt gratitude to Neil's teachers and Levy Special Education Center for the years of patient and compassionate care. Thanks for teaching Neil to be the best he can be. Also, a huge thank you to agencies, respite workers, case managers, and the CDDOs for helping families navigate the system and provide the best care we can for our loved one with autism. Thank you so much for listening.
Commissioner Norton.
Well, one thing I've heard today from both individuals is there's nothing stronger than a mother's love. Thank you very much for wrapping around your own family, your own kids, and taking care of them, taking that responsibility. But by the grace of God, go all of us. And we all have a responsibility as a community to wrap around you and your family and the community to help, because we are all in this together. There's got to be a special place in heaven for what you have endured and done for your family and for our community, to give us hope that if there are our grandchildren, people that we're affected by, friends and neighbors, have that issue in their family, that it can be resolved and it can be worked on, and there is hope. We have an obligation as a community and us as elected officials to make sure that we understand these issues, how dramatic they are, how they affect families, how they affect our neighborhoods and our friends, folks that we go to church with and work with, and make sure that we have services, wrap-around network, and very, very professional, caring people that can help you out in this journey that you've found yourself in this community. Thank you for coming today and telling the story, as hard as it was to tell. Thank you very much, because it really puts a face and a name and a thought process on things that not all of us know about, will endure, have to deal with ever, but are very dramatic to people that we care about in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge my husband, Pat, who I wouldn't be in this big mess without him, but I'm thankful I'm in the mess with him. Thank you.
Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, number one, I want to make comments both for Aldana and for Rachel. But Rachel, you have a very beautiful family. I'm glad that your sons have a good mom, and I know it's tough. Obviously, it's tough, but I think that for someone that has this situation, that clearly you're a good mom that's there, that loves them, and I appreciate what you're doing for them. And we have 5 kids in our family, and I know it's tough to have 5 kids, period, but to have one that's that has that kind of special needs. I really appreciate what you do for them. And Aldona, I just wanted to just let the audience know and my colleagues know that you have worked for years on this issue. I met you years ago. I spent some time talking with you and in Topeka. In fact, I would give you credit for a significant baby step that the state made in regards to a piece of legislation that passed with respect to insurance and trying to do early detection of autism and to provide some attempt to help these kids as early as possible. And I think you had a critical role that you played at the state level, and you continue to do that. I want to say thank you for what you've done. You have made a difference. And I know it is tough for you to stand up and tell your story, but I have been, we got to visit your home and see the things you've put in place for Neil, and I know it's incredibly difficult for all you've gone through, but I do appreciate the fact that you're standing up and telling your story. You know, the data that's in this proclamation today, to me, is alarming. The 60% higher estimate than what we had in 2006. And 1 out of every 68 children in the United States being diagnosed with autism, to me, is an alarming situation. So I'm glad to have the proclamation today to bring some awareness to this. I hope our country will make this one of the priorities that we would truly focus on and trying to find some solutions and some causes as to why this is happening. But again, thank you for what you've done today.
Commissioner Unruh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I would want to second the comments made by my colleagues and express my support and appreciation for the opportunity to make this proclamation today to bring hopefully a little bit of education and enlightenment to our community and make folks aware of some of the challenges that families are facing as they deal with their children and their loved ones in a situation like this. And especially want to express gratitude for these two mothers that have been very brave today to step forward and tell your story. But it's a story that I think we need to hear if we're going to respond appropriately in support of these families. But also want to say thanks to the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. So many of you shown up today to show support. I think that's a strong expression of your commitment and your sense of community and helping one another. And I want you to know that this commission takes seriously your activities in support of our response to this particular issue in our community. So thank you all for being here. That's all I have.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Going to second the comments of my colleagues, but also wanted to give a particular thanks to the volunteers who are helping out, whether they're doing it in some of the ways described here or with other groups. I think of Special Olympics. I know plays an important role for a lot of young people in this community with special needs. I just wanted to add that thank you, and also particularly for the two families who were willing to come out and share their very personal stories with us this morning. Thank you.
I'll just reiterate everything my colleagues have said, and I appreciate you coming out today, and Jeanette and all the people at CDO for all the work you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Appointments, item G, resolution appointing Pastor Bruce Freeman to the Sedgwick County Mental Health Advisory Board.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion.
Good morning, Commissioners. If I may. Good morning,
Oh,
Commissioners.
sorry.
Jennifer Magana, Acting County Counselor. This resolution is an appointment of Pastor Bruce Freeman to the Mental Health Advisory Board. These terms are for 4 years in length. A vacancy exists on the board, and this is Commissioner Howell's appointment. I recommend that you adopt the resolution for this appointment.
Now it's time. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adopt the resolution.
Second.
This is for G and H.
We can take G and H together, but this I had just made for G. If you'd like, I can also make the recommendation for H.
Actually, I'd like to amend my motion to go ahead and adopt the resolution for G and H both for these two appointments. Thank you.
I'll amend my second.
Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Chairman Ransall.
Aye. And do we have Mr. Freeman or Mr. Lee here?
Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Freeman's here. Good.
Good morning. You ready? I do solemnly swear that I support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Kansas, and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Sedgwick County Mental Health Advisory Board, so help me God.
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I thank Commissioner Howell for appointing me to this advisory board, and hope that I will serve you well. As our last speaker mentioned, mental health is so important and vital to our community, and our government is appointed for and elected for those things that we cannot do as individuals, and our health is one of those things that sometimes we cannot do by ourselves, and our mental health is one of those things. And she was able to call a hotline set up by our county when she was desperate and in need of help. So I appreciate the opportunity of serving you and the county on this board, on this advisory board. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item I, resolution appointing Joe Youngers to the Sedgwick County Erie Township Board as trustee.
Jennifer Magana, Acting County Counselor. Commissioners, state law authorizes county commissioners to fill vacancies in township officers' positions when a vacancy exists. This resolution would fill a vacancy in the unexpired term of a Erie Township trustee. I recommend you adopt the resolution which appoints Joe Youngers to fill that vacancy. The term will expire January 8th, 2017. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm agreeing to make that motion to appoint Mr. Youngers.
I'll second that motion. Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Chairman Ransall.
Aye. Next item, please.
Item J, resolution reappointing Jerry Winkley to the Sedgwick County Physical and Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board.
Good morning, Commissioners. This resolution would reappoint Jerry Winkley, who has served a 4-year term. This would be an appointment of Commissioner Howell. It's a 4-year term that would expire April 7th, 2019. I recommend you adopt the resolution.
Actually, it's my appointment, I believe. And I'll make the motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Chairman Ransall.
Aye. We have Jerry Winkley here. Thank you very much for your willingness to continue to serve.
Yes, good morning, Chairman. Thank you again for asking me. I have been on 8 years, and the reason I've been on 8 years, my wife and I have 5 children. Our second son is autistic. He's 27. So all of the memories that they told you about bring back many memories for us. I'd like to say, as a business owner, I've been a business owner for nearly 30 years in Sedgwick County, employed lots of people, lots of yellow vehicles down the street with property taxes on them. As a business owner, I was very pleased, and have been very pleased on my years with the CDDO, feeling that the money that's given to them is well managed, very appropriately. The people that serve are very dedicated people, and I believe very fiscally conscious of what they're doing. So I'm pleased with that. As a taxpayer and a business owner, I'm pleased with what they do and pleased with the impact they make in lives, and it's impacted our family as well. Last summer I sold my businesses and moved into what they call retirement. Retirement has been very busy. One of the other projects that I am now involved with is a group called Greater Expectations. We're very new. We've hired a couple autism specialists, and our focus is going to be employment for adults with autism, with a focus on a functioning business that trains competitive employment skills. Our business model will not involve government funding. We will be a nonprofit, but we intend to make money to grow and invest into the program. So not really looking for funds, but we will be approaching you later. I'd like to explain the concept and talk about what we do, why we do that, and especially the niche of autistic adults. So thank you again for the appointment again.
Thank you, Jerry, very much. Next item, please.
Item K, accept the resignation of Clark Schultz from the Sedgwick County Stormwater Management Advisory Board.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jennifer Magana again. Mr. Clark Schultz has served as the 5th Commission District appointee to the Stormwater Management Advisory Board. He has submitted his resignation. I recommend you adopt the resolution for this resignation.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we do accept the resignation.
Second.
Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Chairman Ransall.
Aye. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public hearing, item L, post-annexation hearing, City of Mays Ordinance Number 813.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Parnicott, Assistant County Counselor. I'll get you a map up on the screen in just a second. This shows you the areas that were annexed in red around the City of Mays. Mays annexed these properties back in 2010, about 25 different tracts, more or less around the fringe areas of the city, filling in some holes, it looks like. They had to prepare a service plan because this was done without the consent of the landowners. That service plan is substantially compliant with state law and provided for the city to take over maintenance of Tyler, Mays, and 119th West, or parts of those streets, to provide street lighting on request, provide drainage services on petition, drainage improvements, water and sewer improvements were also available on petition, and then they would provide, at the time of annexation, the standard city services, police, code enforcement, and other governmental services. As we have done in the past with these hearings that you hold 5 years afterwards to determine if the services have been provided, we sent out a pre-hearing questionnaire to all the landowners involved. We got one response back. That response basically said they had received police services and had filed no other petitions for any services. Other than that, we've had no landowners contact us regarding any service issues. The city also has provided a pre-hearing questionnaire, and they have responded with a report that's in your backup. Essentially, they've indicated they have provided all the services. They've also specifically listed improvements they've made to some of the streets and also some drainage improvements, street lining that's been added, and they've also confirmed that no petitions have been submitted for any of the other services. So your role here today is to open a public hearing, hear any evidence from the city and the landowners as to whether the services have been provided, and to make that finding whether or not the services have been provided. Unless you have any other questions, I would recommend you open the hearing.
Commissioners, any questions for Bob? Seeing none, we'll open the hearing, public hearing of City of Mays Ordinance Number 813. Do we have anyone who wants to speak on this issue?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Mr. Manager, thank you. I'm Richard Lemunion, City Administrator for Mays. The service plan for Ordinance 813 was filed on March 22nd, 2010. We've reviewed it. We've gone through it with our staff and everything. We have submitted written documentation to you for review and to your counselors. It is our position that the city has accomplished through city policy all we were supposed to accomplish, and through the state statutes, and we've accomplished what we were supposed to do in the service plan. We continue to provide services to those newly annexed areas. I could go through the whole list if you would like, but as indicated, there really weren't any input from the people that were annexed regarding concerns that they had. So with that said, I would just say that we believe we are in compliance and request a favorable finding from the Commission. Unless there are questions, that's really all I have to say.
Any questions now, Mr. Lemunion? I don't see any. Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to confirm with you. Thank you for being here, Mr. Lemunion. I want to confirm with you that I see from my background papers here. It talks about you have one police chief, one lieutenant, one sergeant, one community police officer, 4 full-time police officers, and 5 part-time police officers, and 3 reserve. Does that seem like an accurate description of your current staff for the police?
It's fairly close. I think in Sue or Jolene could correct me, I think it's right at 12.
Okay.
We actually, and we also added a new officer this year, and we are working with the school district as a possibility of adding some others through the school system for next year.
As far as these areas of, that are being discussed today, is there any sense of whether or not your police force actually does go out to those areas and provides services if requested, or maybe just patrol those areas once in a while? Is that going on?
Yes, sir. We have the chief and the staff command for the department. They have beat assignments that are set up. Normally we have one officer on duty, except in the evenings, especially on when weather gets a little nicer. We have at least two that are there for patrol duties and responding to calls. All areas of the city are patrolled on a regular basis, and of course calls for service are met as needed.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any questions right now.
Okay.
Do we have any residents affected by this annexation that would like to speak on the Mays ordinance? I see one hand.
Gentlemen, my name's Tim Martin. I live at 5840 North Tyler. I do believe I'm in the red zone that was annexed. I'm not seeing what I would interpret as being a cost benefit to being annexed. Yes, occasionally I see a police car go by. Occasionally I see county sheriffs go by. I've even seen highway patrolmen on Tyler Road now. We seem to have a lot of duplication of effort in those areas. We, in the past, I believe they're being said as 2010 was when I was annexed. Yes, I have a lovely ditch out front of my house that doesn't drain very well to the south, and everybody in that area knows that water tends to drain toward the southeast. It has a limited access across Tyler Road further south of where I live. That would be basically 5700 block, even to the point where residents in that area have sandbagged the entrance to their housing area so that the water gets rediverted further south. You know, there's a International Speedway in that general area. I'm not going to get into the cans and the trash and the plastic and stuff in the ditches. I don't see that the city of Mays has taken any steps toward alleviating that little eyesore. Winter time, yes, it's lovely to have somebody come out and blade the road. I have my own tractor, can blade my own driveway and take out the snow that's piled up at the end of my driveway when the road grader goes by. Park Township was functioning quite well in my area last winter. I lost 2 mailboxes. I thought, well, whose responsibility? Well, it's my mailbox, my responsibility. And just to make a point of the issue, I contacted the city of Mays, and I don't know who the girl was that was the receptionist, but she said that there were like a dozen to 14 other mailboxes knocked down. And I said, I don't believe that it was the city of Mays grading my road. And no, it was not. It was apparently some sort of the city of Mays apparently can't handle the road grading, so they subcontracted, I believe, through the county. County came out and, you know, cost several mailboxes, but no big deal there, other than the post office raised the question as to how we're going to deliver your mail. The digging of the ditch out front of the house. Well, yes, there's a lovely ditch out there, and which it's impossible for me to mow the ditch simply because it's like a little miniature cliff. The ditch has not been back dug on my side of the property. And then the city of Mays, the street, Tyler, is got a nice bank to it, but I have kind of a cliff to drop off, and I don't see that anybody is mowing the area, the ditch. Some people to the further south have had the luxury of having a better ditch dug and finished. I guess I'm contending that my ditch is not finished, and for the last 5 years it has not been finished, and I don't see anybody making any effort to smooth it out. I could take my tractor and drive over and probably fall over, tip over, whatever. I have a limited number of complaints, increased police and fire protection. I seem to have plenty of police protection out there, even to the point where 2 o'clock in the morning when I get off work, I'm sitting there in my own little chair watching my own little TV. I get a knock at the back door. It's Mays Police Department. Said that they have received numerous 911 phone hang-ups from this address, and it's like, I don't think so, not at this one. Invited the officers into my house. Is there anyone else here? Yes, my wife. You go wake her up. She came forward, and she was not happy as to what was going on at the back door and wondering what was going on. And I said, well, got 911 hang-ups from this address. And she goes, not likely. And I tend to agree with that. It was not me. I don't know what the malfunction was there. I'm not excited about being in the city of Mays simply because my backyard is not in the city of Mays. To the north of me is not in the city of Mays. This thing has been kind of I got absorbed. Exactly when did I get absorbed? I'm estimating 2010. Now, do I get the literature sent to me? Yes, I do. I have literature here. My protest, does anybody send in anything? No, I think we are the silent majority out there. You want people to step forward and voice their dissatisfaction with it. You're going to have to dig a little harder, and it's not likely people are going to come up here to this meet with you fellows and voice their opinion. That's basically all I can really say. We are out there. We are not happy about being annexed. We feel we have very little input. We can always call 911 or the city administrative offices in Mays and say, you have a dead coyote down the road. You want to pick it up, or what do you want to do with it? Do I have to get my shovel out and pick it up and bury it, or there's many instances where I have tried to maintain my own little small domain. I own 3 small parcels of property, all adjoining each other, also adjoining the unannexed area of Mays. I'm not overly impressed with Mays. I'm sorry to say that, but I lived there long before it became Mays, and in all likelihood I'll probably continue to live there after the fact. Thank you for your time.
I think we have some questions. Commissioner Peter John?
Yes, could you put the map up there? I want to make sure I understand. You're on the west side of Tyler Road, just north of K96. Is that in one of those red parcels? Is that correct?
I doubt it. You sound like you're too far south. I'm on the east side of Tyler Road, 5800 block north. That would be north of K96. K96 would be south of my residence.
Okay, I think I see which one. I just wanted to make sure, and might have misheard the address when you gave it earlier. Thank you.
Well, the information that I got that was sent to me, it had my name on the letter, and I opened it up, and it's a 3-page letter, and about 1.5 pages of that is, I guess, physical, geographical descriptions of the properties that were in question, and I, for the life of me, could not figure out which one I was. I don't know if I'm 294 foot north of the southeast quadrant of the western edge of the universe. I don't know. I'm sure I've been paying taxes on the place for 20 years, and You know, you would think that information would sink into my little head, but it just does not register with me.
Well, I may have misheard, but you said it was 5700 North Tyler or something like that?
5840 North Tyler.
5840 North Tyler.
Yes.
Okay. No, thank you very much. That was the information, and I wanted to kind of reference it on the map. Thank you.
Visibility is pretty poor with my eyes, so I can't really pinpoint to you where I'm at on that map, but 3 little parcels all together, and south of me is a residence. South of that is Mystic Lakes. I was there before it was even a sand pit, so now it's a housing development. It's great to have neighbors, but
I just wanted to make sure I try and reference it, and I understood where it was on the map. Thank you.
Good.
And your name is Tim Martin, is that right?
That's correct.
Any other questions from commissioners at this time? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the public who would like to speak? I don't see any. Mr. Lemunion, would you? And I don't know, Bob can, or Richard can confirm that I think that small parcel there, that he's one of these citizens involved here.
Perhaps Mr. Lemunion can answer that.
I think Mr. Martin is, yes. I checked with Sue, and she would know. So in response to him, what we've done is on Tyler Road, as a part of the service plan that was to improve Tyler Road, we went in and redid all the ditches along Tyler Road from 61st Street South to 53rd in an effort to make it drain better. And he is correct. It's a difficult issue when it comes to drainage up in that area. Everything up in that particular area is pretty flat. So we did improve the drainage by improving the ditches along both sides of the road. We put new culverts under the properties for the properties owner for driveways and things of that nature. And in addition to that, we also put a hard surface road, asphalt road, from 53rd north to 61st, which was before a dirt road. So that's been improved also. Street lighting was also installed at 53rd and Tyler Road. We're currently working with his neighbors, Mystic Lakes, which is a housing development just to his south, to provide, they haven't really petitioned for it, but we're looking for the option of perhaps running water up to their neighborhood, which would also be a benefit to anyone along that area. Again, they haven't officially petitioned, but there's a lot of engineers that live in that housing, and we've been working with them. One of them is going to be a member of our planning commission. So if there are other questions on that, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Any other questions from commissioners? I see none. Thank you, Richard. I guess at this point it's appropriate to close the hearing on this issue, and it is closed. Bob, do you have any comments or suggestions of how we proceed now?
Other than you've heard testimony from the landowner, you've heard testimony from the city, you have your written materials provided to you before the hearing. I think you need to discuss and determine whether you believe the city has provided the services in accordance with the service plan.
Could you talk to us about the service plan and how it, I mean, there are certain requirements under the state statute, and how does that service plan stand up with respect to the state statute?
Earlier I had mentioned this substantially complies, and that would be the test that would be used by courts if they were reviewing the service plan. It is not perfect. It is missing a few items. Nothing, I think, that would make it difficult for you to make your decisions. I think it does the ultimate purpose of the service plan is to provide a reasonable person, a landowner being a reasonable person, an opportunity to understand what services are being promised them upon annexation, and what services they will have to be requesting or petitioning for before they receive. Some of the things that you typically would see in a service plan would be a zoning map showing what the land uses are in the area, maps showing the streets and water and sewer lines that are either planned or in existence, those kinds of things. So again, from a substantial compliance standpoint, I think this is certainly not the best service plan we've seen, but it is a good service plan, and I think it's an adequate service plan for your purposes.
Okay. Now, how many total parcels are involved in this?
I think we had a total of 25 tracts.
25 tracts.
That were annexed, yes.
And what are our options here? We can find in favor of the city, in favor of, I mean, we only had one person show up here. Can we find in favor of one person and in favor of the city of the others, or how does that work?
In the past, you have occasionally, particularly when you've had an annexation like this, where you've had different areas being annexed, and you've only had testimony that the services were not provided to one particular area or one particular property, you have limited your finding to that particular property. Other times, when the testimony is more widespread or it's a more compact area, you have just made a finding that the city has not provided services, period. So you really do have two options here. You certainly could, if you want to make a finding that the city has not provided services, you could limit that finding to the property that was testified to only.
Okay. If we make that finding, then what happens?
That starts a 2.5-year period for the city, more or less a grace period, where they have the opportunity during those 2.5 years to provide those services that were not provided. And at the end of the 2.5 years, the landowner would then have an opportunity, if they felt they were still not getting the services, to petition for to be excluded from the city limits at that point. We usually call that de-annexation, and as a matter of fact, your follow-up hearing today will be a de-annexation hearing for another city. So that's how that process works, is you wait 2.5 years, and if somebody still feels they're not getting services, a petition has to be filed. You don't automatically have the hearing. You have to wait for petition, but then you have to set a hearing and consider again whether the services have been provided.
So just to be clear, the landowners aren't notified. They have to know that in 2.5 years to take the initiative. It falls upon them to take that initiative in 2.5 years to file a petition.
The statute requires the county, after they make that finding, to provide notice at the time of the finding. So we will send a notice out to everybody if that finding gets made now or shortly after you adopt the resolution stating the finding. We are not required by statute to send up a follow-up notice. The board could certainly adopt a policy or procedure where that is done. You aren't restricted from doing that by statute. You just aren't required to do it. Okay. And we have not done that in the past.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board?
One question.
Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the only response, I guess, the pre-hearing questionnaire only received one response, but it's from a company, CAF Real Estate LLC, not from a person. And actually, reading this, it's not clear to me if they're actually saying there's a complaint or not. It says, have you received any of these services? It says, yes, police services. Is there anything on this that indicates they're dissatisfied or...
I do not read it that way. We have seen a number of responses, and when somebody is unhappy with services or believes they're not getting services, we usually get a fairly clear statement to that effect.
So there's nothing on this that would indicate necessarily this is a negative complaint?
No. It says, the question was, have you received any of these services? And the response is yes, police services. So they are saying we have received those services. It's not saying that they were good services or bad services or they were in accordance with the service plan. So it's somewhat neutral in that respect, but it's certainly not a complaint that they did not get services.
All right. That's my only question. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I guess I'll make a motion. I move that we find the city has provided services in accordance with the service plan for all parcels, with the exception of the one parcel located at 5840 North Tyler. And I would, and with respect to that parcel, I would move that we find the city has not provided the services in accordance with the service plan. That's my motion.
Mr. Lemunion has requested whether you would make a more specific finding as to what services have not been provided.
I will allow Mr. Martin's testimony to stand on its own. Thank you.
Very good.
We have a motion and a second. Any? Yes, he seconded.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions or comments? Are you okay, Madam Clerk?
Do you mind repeating the entire motion just for
Okay.
clarity? One
I
more?
move that we find the city has provided services in accordance with the service plan for all parcels except for the parcel located at 5840 North Tyler. And with respect to that one, I move that we find the city has not provided services in accordance with the service plan.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second.
We do.
And I'll just say these hearings are often difficult. City says one thing, the landowners say another, and it can be difficult on which side to go forth. But if someone takes the time to show up and state their cause and register the complaint, I'm going to keep an open mind to the citizen and provide them the. Well, I'm going to take their comments and concerns seriously. Commissioner Howell?
Mr. Chairman, I do appreciate the motion. As I listened to the testimony of Mr. Martin very carefully, I wrote down some of his comments, and I was listening to him with respect to the service plan, and I did not hear anything that he said today that would indicate to me that the city has not met their agreement on the service plan. So, I understand his comments. He said, quote, "I don't like it." He says he's not happy. He's had a little input to the process, according to him. He talked about snow in his driveway that he clears off, the mailbox that got damaged, other things like that. He said he essentially said he had good police service. He didn't mention anything else that I could think of that's actually specifically described in the service plan that would indicate that I would support his exemption to the motion where services were provided. So therefore, I guess I will, rather than make a substitute motion, I'll let this motion see what, and I'll see, let this one go forward and see what happens. But if this motion fails, I would probably make a motion after this that services were provided for all the parcels. And so I will be voting against the motion to see what happens. And my reasoning for that, again, is because I don't believe he's provided any evidence today, and I think it would to provide clarity to the city, specifically what they could do differently to provide services. I don't know what they would do. So I would be voting no today.
Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Without repeating a lot of conversation, I would just say that the explanation that Commissioner Howell gave clearly represents my perspective, and I also will not be supporting the motion.
Any other question? Comments? Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
No.
Commissioner Norton?
No.
Commissioner Howell?
No.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Chairman Ransall?
Aye. Motion fails 2-3.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. We find the city has provided services in accordance with the service plan.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second.
I'd like to make a comment.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Well, I'm going to struggle with this vote a little bit because I think the information that's been presented to me, the City of Mays has been in substantial compliance with this plan, and I think the comments that were made are positive in that regard. Having said that, I have a lot of problems with the way state law forces us to handle these annexation cases, and so I've always been trying to be very responsive to the citizens involved. But I want to get on the record clearly that compared to some of the other plans we've had in the past, this is definitely better. And while it may not be perfect, and I don't know if there is a perfect plan out there, I do believe that the City of Mays, in this case, has some positive aspects. So my vote. I'm struggling with the vote on this issue, and I guess at this point you can say I'm playing Hamlet this morning. But I wanted to put that on the record and at least give the reasons. So whichever way I come down, and I'd be interested in hearing my colleagues' comments too. Thank you.
Commissioner Howell?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to be very clear. I understand the landowners that are living near cities. They tend to enjoy many of the services that cities provide. And I have not met a single landowner near a city that has enjoyed those services but lower taxes, that has petitioned to be brought into the city. Generally speaking, they enjoy their freedom and they enjoy living close to the city. And so it's a great situation for them, and I appreciate, if I was in their position, I would certainly feel the same way. And I don't think any of them really want to be annexed, because what that represents is maybe a little bit less freedom and higher taxes. And I understand that is generally a fairly negative thing for most landowners, and they don't really want to do that. And that's what the comments that Mr. Martin made today about not liking it and he's not happy. I understand that. I completely would be with him if I was in his shoes. But there was not evidence today presented specifically. I'm looking at the Kansas law on annexation, and I'm looking at the service plan specifically as a quasi-judicial role. We're supposed to be very objective, and again, I'm trying to find what is the evidence to support anything other than that the cities provide services. I have no evidence at this time to not agree with the city that they provided services. Whether I like the idea that we can annex property unilaterally with, the city essentially can make those actions, and landowners have very little ability to argue back. That's an issue of state law, and I understand the concern, and I even sympathize with the landowner. I wish that they had more ability to perhaps control their destiny, so to speak, but I have no evidence today to support anything other than that city has provided services. And so, Mr. Chairman, I just want to let you know I'm trying to be as objective as I can, and looking specifically at the law and what I have to judge today. I have no evidence to choose otherwise. So that's it. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second, right?
We do.
Seeing no other comments, call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
No.
Chairman Ransall?
No. Motion passes 3-2.
Mr. Chairman, may I have just 1 minute on an unrelated subject? Earlier you talked about autism and some of the volunteers in the neighborhood, and I just wanted to compliment you, and regardless of your vote, I was going to say this anyway. Please understand. I want to compliment you, the commissioners, and the commissioners before you that had the foresight to put the support system in place. I'm an avid supporter of Special Olympics, has been for over 40 years. I work with Special Olympics not only in Kansas, but literally around the world through the Law Enforcement Torch Run. And the real heroes, and you hit right on it, are the families, the people that have intellectually challenged individual children. And we as a community have the obligation to come together and to support them. And I just thank you as elected officials for doing that. Thank you for allowing me to say that.
Thank you. Commissioners, we've only been going an hour and a half, but I think the next hearing might last a little longer. I would like to take just a 5-minute recess, and then we'll come back and take up the next item. We'll stand in recess for 5 minutes. All right, we're back from recess. And Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item M, public hearing on petitions for de-annexation from the City of Valley Center.
Good morning, Commissioners. Again, Bob Parnicott, Assistant County Counselor. The City of Valley Center annexed about 30 parcels in several different areas. I've got a map up on the screen. You can see properties highlighted with a red outline. That is showing the properties that were annexed back in 2007. You had your post-annexation hearing in 2012. At the conclusion of that time, you made a finding that the city had not provided services to the area. That gave the city 2.5 years to provide those services. At the end of the 2.5 years, the landowners were entitled under state law to petition you for another hearing. We have now had 2 petitions filed within about 10 days of each other, and I'm going to blow up this map and then kind of move it down to show you, because all the properties right now that we're going to be talking about are over here to the left of the map, south of 81st Street, and then just to the east of 55th Street. There's a total of 13 parcels between the 2 petitions. The petitions shared a couple issues and then had one additional issue. So let me just briefly address the issues in the petition. First, they asserted that police, and particularly animal control services, have not been provided equal to pre-annexation services provided by the sheriff and the county. In particular, I think they indicated the city right now does not have a weekend or after-hours animal control officer. They also raised the issue of a maintenance agreement that was proposed between the city and the county over 81st Street from west to Hoover. 81st Street is in the unincorporated area, was not annexed into the city, is not part of the service plan, and we'll talk about the service plan in a minute. But they do raise that as an issue. I think the city chose apparently not to enter into that agreement with the county for the maintenance. The other issues they've raised are similar, but they're a little bit differently worded. In this particular situation, as you can see, or not very well see, unfortunately, because of the map detail, but on those properties, to the west side of the property is actually a private cul-de-sac. So there are properties on the east side of the cul-de-sac, which is a private drive, that are in the city of Valley Center, and the properties on the west side of the private drive are not in Valley Center. That was somewhat of an anomaly, apparently, because of state law requires cities to sequentially annex properties. So they would have had to annex the east side before they could have said to be adjoining the west side, at which point they could have annexed the west side. However, they stopped mid-street, obviously, and only annexed the east side and did not annex the west side of that private cul-de-sac. Also to the north, you can see they did not annex the properties immediately adjacent to 81st Street. So those properties are outside, and 81st Street remains in the unincorporated area. But they have, the petitioners have brought this up as an issue because it does create, obviously, some jurisdictional issues in terms of first response, code enforcement, who handles what. If it occurs in the middle of the street, who do you call? Sometimes you might dispatch a sheriff's officer when it's really a police matter, or vice versa. So that's the nature of those petition issues, I believe. After we received the petitions, you set the hearing for today. We sent out notices and met our statutory requirements there, we believe. Your role here today is to hold a public hearing, receive testimony from the city and from representatives of the city, or the petitioner, landowners, on whether the services were extended or not extended in accordance with the service plan. And then after you've closed the public hearing, the statutory finding you're required to make is whether or not the city has provided municipal services in accordance with the service plan and consistent with the timetable in the service plan. Typically, when we see a service plan and we see a substantially compliant or very good service plan, it will have an actual timetable. It'll list services. It'll have a column that says to be provided, and it'll either say upon annexation or upon a date or upon petitioner request, and then perhaps how those services are to be funded, whether it's city at large dollars or individual taxpayer special assessments. In this case, we do not have that in this service plan. You can arguably understand the timetable from the reading of the text, because the text indicates which services are to be done on petition and which services are to be done upon annexation. The service plan is also very short, 2 pages, frankly. Essentially addresses the services to be extended to the landowners. Again, this service plan was prepared back in 2007. Your role here is not to determine whether the service plan is adequate. Obviously, an inadequate service plan presents you certain problems in addressing the issue, but that's not your role today to pass on whether or not it's a adequate service plan. We have to live with the service plan we have in front of us. And briefly speaking, those services that were set out were to be provided by the city after annexation, where fire was going to switch from Fire District number 1 primary provider to Valley Center's Fire Department. Police services were to switch from the sheriff to the police, city police. Streetlights, consistent with the city's streetlight plan. Sewer and water, those kinds of things would be provided upon petitions by the landowner. An emergency siren plan was in effect for the city of Valley Center as to where and how they cite sirens. And other than that, they did not take in any roads at the time of the annexation, so they did not make any statements in their service plan as to road maintenance issues. As far as the police services would go, they did not specify anything about animal control. They just basically left it in the service plan as police services. Finally, the last comment I would make is the statute does require the service plan is supposed to provide information to the landowner how the services to be provided by the city are equal to or better than the services provided prior to the annexation. The service plan doesn't really address that. It does in some ways, certainly by implication, but for the most part we don't really have that clear of a statement there. So your role again today is in these hearings is to act in a quasi-judicial role. You have to hear the evidence, draw conclusions and for the basis of your official action, which is making that finding, and generally exercise your discretion in the manner of a judge. Because this is quasi-judicial, there are due process protections that need to be adhered to. One of those most important ones is if you've had ex parte contacts with anybody on either side of this issue, you should disclose those on the record that you've had those contacts. If you are going to use information that you obtained through those ex parte contacts, you should state what that information is on the record to allow either side to rebut that or respond to that information. If you're not going to use any of that information, then you don't have to mention it. Unless you have any other questions at this point, I would recommend you open the public hearing and hear testimony and then proceed as you seem fit.
Bob, I have a few questions. First, I'll say I have had some ex parte communications with Mr. Gary Lee on this issue. There have been emails and one conversation that are really about the process of how the petition works and timing and this, that, and other. Really wasn't about the content of the petition itself, and nothing in our conversation will be used to make my decision here today. Now, on the hearing, we're going to hear from Joe Paul, the city administrator, and then we can hear from any citizens who's affected by this annexation. Correct?
That's correct. Ordinarily, you would hear the petitioners first. I bet it's your call how you want to conduct the hearing, but typically petitioners first, and then the city responds. And then if you want to allow any rebuttal, that would be appropriate.
Okay. But if a citizen wants to speak who's not one of the petitioners, then we're not supposed to allow that to happen. Because I think we have one person signed up who's not, so we'll just restrict that to the petitioners and Joe Paul to represent the city today.
You could certainly let her speak just as long as you don't rely on her information as part of your decision making. It might be a better practice not to have her speak or have her speak if she wants to make comments after the close of the public hearing, because the public hearing is where you hear the actual evidence you're going to make your decision on.
Okay, thank you. Now, a couple questions about the service plan. So, is the service plan adequate?
Clearly not. From a variety of it is nowhere near adequate.
It's not even close. I think you use the term woefully inadequate.
Yes.
And that would be accurate. So it doesn't meet the state requirements. And I know we're not here to judge specifically that, but we're supposed to decide whether or not they've met the service plan requirements, and the service plan is faulty to begin with, so that increases our challenge here.
Yes.
And as you stated before, the statute does require that they provide services that are equal or better to what they had previously. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Bob before we open up the public hearing? Seeing none, at this point we will open the public hearing on petitions for de-annexation from the City of Valley Center, and we'll start with the petitioners. The first person I have on the list is Dan Houston.
Real quickly, I forgot to mention, the City of Valley Center did submit something in writing prior to it. You should have a copy of that. If not, we'll get you a copy. It's a resolution the City Council passed last night. We just received it this morning. We've distributed it to the clerk for his records, sorry. And members of the audience that are here to speak on the matter. If you don't have copies, I'll get you a copy. Do you have those?
I believe this is it.
Very good.
64215.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So that can be made part of your record, and the city can speak to that in more detail.
Thank you. Well, have you approached the podium? Give us your name and address for the record, please. And we'll give you about 3 minutes. We'll give everyone 3 minutes or so, with the exception of Mr. Lee, who I know has a PowerPoint presentation, I think. So we'll give him a little more time. So, Mr. Houston.
Well, I want to thank you for this privilege to be heard.
Please first state your name and address, please.
My name is Dan Houston, and I live at 5219 West 77th North. I'm on almost to Hoover on the south side of 77th Street, and my neighbor right across the street from me is in the county, and my neighbor to the south of me is in the county. And I'm very uncomfortable speaking here. I'm just a mechanic by trade, but I'm no match for Valley Center's lawyers. But I would like to say some things here that really affect me and our life here in the county or in Valley Center. I have nothing against the people of Valley Center, first of all. I love the town. I love the people. And all of them that I can think of that I've talked to agree with me and us. My problem is with bureaucratic injustice. City government is required by the Constitution to do no harm and to treat all its citizens alike. There should be mutual benefit. In my case, all the benefit goes to Valley Center. I put in my own water system, septic system, my own propane tank for heat, my own underground cable for electric power. All this was done according to county code at my expense. And we bought 5 acres out there in 1983. So I've paid more taxes now than it cost me to build the house and buy the land. I cannot afford to pay the upkeep and maintenance on my own services and Valley Center's too. No animal control. Valley Center wouldn't even pick up a wild tomcat after I trapped it, which has happened several times. When Al Hobson contacted the city, he was told to tell me to just haul it off. Roadkill is another problem. We mow our own ditches. The truth is, we live in the county and should be paying county taxes. We are too far from city services to benefit from them. The county blacktopped 77th before we were annexed, and their services was just great. This is our last chance to correct this injustice. Please rule in our favor. Let's bring back truth and justice as the American way. Valley Center has the money for a new golf course. Surely they won't miss our taxes. And I would like to quote here, "For what avail the plow and sail, or land or life, if freedom fail?" And this last quote I hesitate to read is from Benjamin Franklin, because I'm normally a
a gentle guy. Democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. And that's the way we feel out here, is we were lambs, and the wolves had their way with us. That concludes what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Houston. Commissioners, are there any questions for Mr. Houston? Commissioner Unruh?
Not a question, but I just want to say that said he was just a mechanic. Well, I was just a mechanic for 40 years, and I want to tell you, you were very eloquent. Good job.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Next up, we have Marlon Schrag. Please give us your name and address, please.
Marlon Schrag, S-C-H-R-A-G, 5013 West 77th Street North, Valley Center, Kansas, 67147. In 1984, my wife and I thought we had made an excellent decision. We wanted to move north of Wichita with our two young children to be more out in the rural area, and we found a lovely area about 6 miles north of Wichita that where they were starting a community of a rural community of houses and lots, and so we thought that's it, that's good. It's Valley Center is a good place, and we're close to Wichita, we're close to Valley Center. It's a good location, and the land was good. And then in 2007, we began to doubt how excellent our decision was, because our budget suddenly lost about $1,000 in taxes. And of course, I'm repeating this, and even though your paper says that we should not be restating the points that have been previously mentioned. Well, as a teacher, now retired, I believe that repetition is important for effective communication. And paying around $1,000 more in taxes when I was a retired school teacher, and Capers was becoming less and less effective, and losing it became less valuable, and then to have $1,000 extra coming out of the budget, I didn't see any reason for it. You talk about new services. In my opinion, new services were not needed. The county had been providing for our services, our needs, very well. And if we had wanted to have, is there something more that we needed, I believe the county would have helped us out. And in fact, the county did help us out by paving our 77th Street. And so I question whether our family made the right decision in 1984 because of what's been happening with the annexation. Thank you.
Commissioner Howe? There are some questions.
Mr. Schrag, I got a couple questions for you. Mr. Schrag?
Yes. We have some questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious, can you tell me, do you have any street lights near your residence?
No.
Where is the nearest street lamp? Or is it?
No, we have no need for one.
So there's nothing right now, there's no street lighting anywhere nearby?
Not that I know, not that I'm aware of. I don't pay that much attention to it. I grew up on the farm, and I've driven on many roads most of my life. with that are dark roads. And now I understand that 2 street lights have been put in someplace, and I understand also that the people aren't too happy about it who live there, because they like to be more out where they can see the stars and so forth. But I think the county would have given the street lights if we had asked for them anyhow.
Just in the service plan, it talks about they have to have a plan to install some street lighting consistent with the rest of the city. So mostly intersections and other places determined by community standards, whatever that means. Are you able to hear an emergency siren from your home? Can you hear a tornado coming?
Faintly. Yeah, it's not. It's if it's being practiced, and I'm outside and I'm listening, then I hear the practice sirens.
Okay.
But I didn't hear any siren when what I heard the other night was a fierce wind and the hail pounding on my house, and I was questioning now, should I go down the basement or not?
I don't think the sirens were going off during that storm. What about? Do you have the internet at your house?
Yes.
Internet. Who's your service provider?
The service provider is Cox.
Okay. That's also part of the service plan. So I just want to make sure that was being provided out there. Okay.
Yeah, we had it from Cox long before there was any annexation.
Is there anything objectively you can cite that you would look at the service plan? Again, as I'm reading the service plan, I agree it's woefully inadequate, but nevertheless, this is the service plan. So, is there anything that you could highlight objectively that would say that this is the item that the city has not met this specific thing in the service plan? Is there anything in here that you would say that's the thing that objectively this is the thing the city has not provided that they said they would do?
I am not able to answer that question. I have not read the service plan. All I know is that my income has gone down around $1,000, and whatever the service plan says, that wasn't of special interest to me.
All right. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Commissioner Peter John.
Question, and maybe this may be more for Mr. Parnicott, but it may relate to how we need to proceed in the testimony we've received so far from Mr. Houston and Mr. Schrag. The material that I was given here, entitled City of Valley Center Post-Annexation Report, along with the ordinance, the resolution has some dates on it, and they've dated it as of yesterday. Should I consider the last 2 pages as being dated yesterday, Mr. Parnicott, or I don't see a specific date on it, and I want to get into the timing issue because we've had talks about how the timing has not been adequate, and they talk about here at annexation, and I was interested in finding out that if this occurred at annexation, what would be the relevant date that we need to consider for this document, and also when it says at annexation, would that go back to what is it, the date? I believe it's June 5th, 2007.
Yeah, I don't know anything about what they've written here. I recognize the June 5th, 2007. You said on the second page. What were you referring to?
When I was referring to the second page of the post-annexation report, it's not the resolution.
Oh, I don't have that.
If you've got this document, it would be page 3 and 4.
Yeah, I didn't study the document.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I was trying to, if I could, get Mr. Parnicott to kind of come up and help me out in terms of what I need to consider as part of your testimony, Mr. Craig. I may have some more questions for you. I want to understand, since I just got this document this morning, and you all, it sounds like, Bob, you got it just a little bit before we did. So
Yes.
I'm trying to understand what date I should consider this as of June 5th, 2007, April 7th, 2015, in accordance with the resolution, or some other date.
Well, I think the period that you should be looking at is the 2.5-year period from the point you made the finding at the 5-year mark, because there was the 5-year hearing in June of 2012, where you made a review of what had happened between June of 2007 and June of 2012. So that was the 5-year review, and at that time you made a finding that it provided services during that 5-year period. That started this 2.5-year period where the city was required to provide those services, or they would be subject to petition for a de-annexation hearing. So your focus today should be on that 2.5-year period and whether those services in the service plan were provided in accordance with the service plan during that 2.5-year period.
So if they're saying that these services were provided at annexation, they'd be referring back not at the 2.5 period, but to the 2007 date. Is that the way I should read that?
I think you should direct that question to Mr. Pyle when he gets to speak. He needs to explain what the report is, because I've only received it and had time to briefly review it.
Well, Mr. Houston and Mr. Schrag, if I could have you gentlemen come back to the podium, please. You made the specific question about animal control and the lack thereof. Has that been consistent throughout the time period since 2007, or is this more recent, or
this is more recent for me because I've been watching it a little closer. And
when you say more recent, in the last 2.5 years?
Yes, last 2.5 years. I'm no match for Valley Center's lawyers, but I have a question.
Well, don't underestimate yourself, sir. I agree with Commissioner Unruh's comments about mechanics.
Well, thank you. I just wonder why they have to keep voting on this thing, because they've done this at least twice, and one time it was only by one vote that they agreed that they had completed it. And I just received this morning, and I got my copy from her, who was in a meeting last night where they did it.
Well,
this is kind of the way they run things, kind of like Washington.
Well, but we're required to operate under state statute and the legal advice that we receive. You'd made the point on animal control, and I think I've got the information I need. Appreciate it, Mr. Houston.
Okay, yeah. Basically, I could tell no difference. I mean, they talk about services, but out there where I am, I'm on the very western fringe. Nothing changed, really. We were getting everything. It's unseen things. The only thing that changed was all the money going out, which Mr. Schrag and myself and a couple others could buy a fire engine for what we're spending, and the county was taking good care of us before.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Schrag, there were certain specific services listed and a number here. I was curious if you could be specific, not looking at the tax side of it or the counties per se, but in terms of the city service being the same or better than what you'd had prior to annexation.
I don't have any knowledge of services that are new services that have been provided. I have not observed them. It was a duplication of the police took over from the sheriff, and there's been no change that I'm aware of in services, and we didn't really need a change in the services before. I'm sorry, I haven't observed anything.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Next, we have Angie Basden.
Hi, Commissioners and Chairman. First, I do want to say
Please
that...
give us your name and address.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Angela Basden, 5053 West 81st Street North in Valley Center. Okay. I really didn't have anything prepared to speak here for, except for my experience from being annexed into Valley Center. When we bought when we built our house, we were already annexed in there. But the things that we've experienced, like our neighbors to the north of us, that's right, we're to the north of us, when we had issues with calling police, the Valley Center people would get confused if they should come out, if Sedgwick County should come out. And at one time, we had both Sedgwick County because the neighbor was in Sedgwick County, and then we had the Valley Center police officer out there to resolve our dispute. And that's kind of a waste of money, I think, to have two entities have to resolve our problem. I still feel like they're confused on when they respond. As for living near a city, as Commissioner Howell pointed about, and we get benefits from it, no, we don't. I built a house with a septic tank with propane. I don't really use propane for my house. I have a ground source heat pump. But I'm looking at their street maintenance here. And by the way, I wasn't real happy that I got handed this document today. It would have been nice to have been able to read over that. But street maintenance is really only done to the point to where they want, or they agreed to, because then I guess Sedgwick County or the township, I don't know who keeps up that other part where our street is, but that doesn't get maintained by the city. I mean, they might maintain up to that point, which is by Bella Vista Road, which is the street before my street, 81st Street. And that's as proven by when snow clearing was done. The snow plow came down, went right through to Bella Vista. They did not maintain past their point that they say they maintain. And that's too bad because we are paying extremely high taxes for no benefits. Let's see, the other thing I wanted to address on here is I don't get city water from them. I don't need city water from them. I have a well. I don't need sewer service from them. I have a sewer. But yet, on my trash bill, I'm paying a fee for stormwater for Valley Center. So I'm paying a stormwater fee attached to the trash bill. When if I paid my own trash bill not done through the city, then I wouldn't have to pay that stormwater fee. Again, I think my biggest thing is that they haven't provided the services, and it's very confusing to live in mass chaos. Sedgwick County doesn't know if they respond, Valley Center doesn't know if they respond, but I did want to say I do love Valley Center, but I don't believe I'm getting any services. I'm paying very high taxes, and my property is very self-sustaining with the sewer, the septic. I don't know about the street lights because if they don't maintain our street and they don't maintain that street out there, I don't know what street lights they're providing because they don't go past the Bella Vista Street. And sorry I was so rambling, but I was trying to give you my experience on that.
We have some questions from Commissioner Howell.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Angie, you were referring to the previous hearing, actually, when you made the comment about living near a city.
No, you said that today.
Was that okay? I think it was this maybe the previous item, and maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yes, today, yes.
I guess the comment was really about to me what I was trying to say was you might enjoy the library or some entertainment things that are provided by the city, some sports leagues, maybe churches, grocery stores.
I do put funds in there, so when I'm there, I do feel like I'm supporting Valley Center.
Certainly, and I guess that's the point. I guess there are some people who live on the very edge of a city that essentially enjoy all the same things that anybody else in the city would enjoy.
I don't normally use them a lot, but I do want to keep Valley Center sustained, yes. I love their little city.
Sure.
I just don't feel like I'm getting a benefit from being included as a citizen in their city.
Okay. Have you read the service plan?
I don't believe I have. I've been listening.
Just to let you know, our role today is to be objective and to weigh the evidence presented with respect to the service plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm trying to do here. So I want to be very objective, and I'm asking specific questions about sirens and internet provider opportunities if you wanted to have a contract with them, and street lighting. With respect to the road improvements and with the city water and city sewer services, those are available only if the residents want to by petition accept a special assessment tax on those properties. They have to pay for it. I mean, if you're in a city in Kansas, the way Kansas does this is that people who have water and sewer service and road improvements have special taxes to pay for those things. It's not free, paid by other taxpayers, but you have to pay for that yourself. It's a personal responsibility principle, I think. And so the citizens out there would have the choice of saying, we would like to have road improvements and have these services, but you'd have to pay for those things.
That's why I built on the 5 acres out of the city.
And I understand that, and I agree. I'm just saying that you guys have an opportunity. You're not exercising it, which is fine. It's your choice. You don't have to have those things. And to the extent that you have things that you're content with, there's absolutely no reason to petition a city to have water and sewer and street improvements. And I would, if I was in your shoes, I'm sure I would feel exactly the same way. But those are not things that the city had ever promised to provide. I guess I want to be very clear. It's not in the service plan. So what they did say they would provide is lighting, as they did at other parts of the city.
Where are they going to provide that lighting for me?
Again, I don't know your neighborhood specifically, but if someone had evidence, and maybe when we hear from the city,
maybe we can find out here if they're.
We hear from the city representation. I'm sure they'll go there and talk about that. But the lighting is a specific thing. Internet service provision is one. There's a couple of other things in there as well. But and I agree that
they're not cleaning my ditches. And they don't clean my culverts. I don't know what they're talking about there. The street that goes to our own street, they don't really maintain because those houses are in Sedgwick County. So I'm trying to figure out here, let's see. They don't clean my ditches. They don't come and do culvert cleaning. I don't get the city water. I don't get the city service. The fire protection I haven't had to have yet. But our neighbors behind us, I think there was some confusion when their house caught on fire. I can find that out. Police protection is a nightmare, and that's kind of important to me. Having the right people respond, but it shouldn't take the county and Valley Center Police to resolve our issue. It'd be nice if we had one entity that could resolve that. That was very confusing, and it still is. Animal control, I can't really speak on that. There's a lot of dogs loose out in the city. I haven't really called on any animal controls, and I don't know what the other city services are that they're doing, but,
Let me just be real clear. The animal control issue, I'm surprised they actually addressed that in the resolution that we just received today, because in the actual service plan that was passed to accomplish the annexation in the first place, never even mentions animal control. It's not in the requirement service plan at all. And
well, I'm looking here, and it's on the document that they provided to us this morning.
Right. It's on that document, which is why I'm saying that I'm surprised it's on that document, because if you go to the service plan that was passed when they did the annexation, the animal control was not a service they spoke about. What they did talk about was fire protection, police protection, street lighting, emergency alert system, storm water, water and sewer services, roadways, and private utilities.
Can you tell me what I'm paying the stormwater fee for?
I can't tell you that. I'm sorry.
Because I don't know what I'm really paying it for.
I think that's a common complaint. I think a lot of landowners would feel the same way. And I'm a member of my church that was assessed a stormwater fee for our parking lot. We were actually had mitigations on our own property for retention pond and other things, and it didn't matter. We're still assessed a very large fee for stormwater, even though we're a church. I think it's a very common complaint. I completely understand that. I'm sympathetic to that.
Well, Mr. Howell, can I ask you a question? On the street that goes down, it's 81st Street, before you turn into our driveway, those homes are not in Valley Center. So the street maintenance doesn't really benefit us all the way because it's a short portion to the Bella Vista Road. So what benefit am I getting out of the street maintenance then?
I guess I have a question for our council at some point here, but again, as he explained it, the annexation has to be incremental, and so they did a row of homes. Unfortunately, didn't do the other side of the road, which makes it this confusing thing. And the issue you did mention, I think, is relevant. But again, I'm not sure there's a legal aspect of this. But if you call 911, there may be confusion as to whether this is on the one side of the road or the other, and who should respond. And there is some confusion created because of that. But whether they de-annex the side that you're on or annex the opposite side, there's two ways to solve that problem. where we're at right now, the configuration is a little confusing, both for emergency services and for code enforcement.
Which are very important.
And I agree, and there's two ways to solve that. But on a legal basis, I don't know that that necessarily is an objective complaint that I can consider today, because it's not understanding, again, that the state allows, actually requires incremental annexation, that confusing thing I wish would be resolved, but that's not really part of something I think I can consider today, because that's not really...
Right. If your family was dealing with it, I think it would be important.
And I understand that. And again, I am sympathetic to your comment, and I think it should be solved. But that's not something I think that can be evidence to make this decision today. That's not something I can consider.
Can you tell me what exactly I'm getting for my high tax dollars from being in the city of Valley?
I'm not gonna speculate on that. I'm just trying to weigh your testimony against the service plan. That's all I'm doing today.
I'm just trying to figure out what I'm paying for. I don't get anything.
I understand.
So.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commission. Wait, Angie, sorry. I have a question. And you may remember, you said something about the police protection is what?
Chaotic?
Chaotic, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And how long have you been there?
Since '09.
And that's how you would characterize it?
Yes, for response. I mean, we had a neighbor where we had to call quite a bit, and both sides were always confused as to whose problem and how to resolve it. So, yes, and that neighbor's no longer there, but it was what we dealt with issues that they're not in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Gary Lee, and then we have an Anthony. I don't know if you guys are going to go separate or together, or okay.
If you want to leave the previous PowerPoint up, just for a moment. The counties. Okay, 2.5 years ago.
Sorry, Gary.
Sorry, Gary Lee, 5335 West 81st Street North, Valley Center, Kansas.
Thank you.
All right. 2.5 years ago, myself, Anthony, and Mr. Houston were here arguing our case. I had sent a PowerPoint presentation to the commissioners at the time, and I've made an amendment to that. I'm going to speak to that in just a moment. But our homes are the ones. There were two petitions. The first petition that myself, Anthony, and Cesar Morales signed were the lighter blue homes up there. So those are in 81st Street. So if you can go to mine right now, appreciate that. Go to the second page. You want me to do it? Or? Okay. Okay. All right. Do the commissioners have this? Have you read through this by chance? I think I sent that in 2 days ago.
Bob, do you want?
Pardon me, sir. We received that by email just, I think, Monday, didn't we? And so we distributed it to you by email. It was too late to get it into the online backup, so it's not part of your backup package, but you did get it before the hearing, and obviously he'll work through it and speak to it. So.
And will we have a copy to enter into the record?
Yes.
Okay.
This first page is the same one that we submitted 2.5 years ago. Going through here, as you'll see, I'll address that in just a moment. The street boundaries, as you can tell, the annexation was fragmented to the point where it avoided some responsibility from the city on road maintenance. I'll address that on the next slide. The police protection and code enforcement, I believe you've already been. I'll address that on the city slide. City services, water, sewer, gas. Those have been addressed already. Those aren't provided by the city. And we're west of Valley Center, so there's a river that divides us. And there were previous annexations also west of Valley Center. That some of these that have been addressed, including street lights. But I'll show that in just a minute. Our home, the two that are up there in blue and the two that are behind us are part of this annexation and this probation period. Our taxes, we talked about taxes. Our taxes have gone up. Mine have gone up 14% this year. And fire protection and police protection. In the last 2.5 years, the Sedgwick County Police Force and the homeowners have had 2 meetings in our area west of Valley Center on an increase in crime and what we can do as citizens. But that was Sedgwick County taking that initiative and the homeowners, not the city of Valley Center. I'll get to street lights in just a minute. And the 31 properties, the properties were annexed, and some of the properties that are going to be addressed by the city service agreement were east of Valley Center and north of Valley Center. So this big, large annexation and the service plan, please try to focus on our area, because they have provided services in other areas of the annexation, but that's not what we're discussing today. Okay, then next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait, go back. Since you're going to go through a lot, I want to ask you, how long have you lived there, Gary?
We've had the land since '97. We've lived there since 2000.
Since 2000. And somewhere on this, it talks about I thought I saw, or did you have another one before? Oh, there we go. The police presence, animal control, code enforcement compared to the county. You have right there is, and you've heard what the previous testimony from Ms. Basden. I mean, so you've been there before and after this annexation.
Yeah, for animal control is not wasn't part of the service plan, but I'm glad that's on here, because it's actually something that the services have deteriorated.
Okay.
Prior to annexation, and because we live in the county, there are a lot of dogs and cats and everything that get dropped off out there. Prior to annexation, we would trap them. We've caught several dogs and cats and one skunk, and we'd call the county. And a lot of it's on weekends. That's because we're home during the daytime on weekends, so we can catch the animals. They'd come out and take care of that. They come out and took care of the skunk. And since then, when we're home on weekends, in this weekend, there was a litter of cats dropped off, and a dog that was dropped off running through our neighborhood. And I don't even bother anymore, because we can't catch it, and we can't call the county. So we just.
And what about police? Would you response? Is that somewhat, as the previous person said, chaotic and confused about who responds?
It is chaotic. It really is, because the areas I want to talk about, well, the private cul-de-sacs have been divided. So when your neighbor across the street is covered by the county and we're covered by the city, then, and I think Mr. Saragano is going to bring up a point about fire protection, it is, because both of them come out there, and we've had to call both of them since then. And the city and the county have come out and responded.
Did you have that chaos prior to annexation?
And every time you call, we have to convince the 911 operator that we're in the city,
right,
because they're assuming we're in the county.
Okay, but this chaos, you didn't have that before? Or?
That's correct. It was all county, and part of our tax dollars as a county residents went to the city of Valley Center to provide fire protection, police protection. I believe it was 50. I used to be on the planning commission, and I think it was 15. This is around 2000. $1,500 went to the city of Valley Center at that time to help provide fire protection. So, as a county resident, we're still paying. We're still paying for some of that for the city.
Okay. Well,
it was clearly defined.
Right.
Which now it's not clearly
defined. I was talking about police, though. That's on this slide right here. The chaos has started since the annexation.
That's very true.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. This is a road situation that we've talked about. And this is what brought up a lot of this 2.5 years ago. The area to my right, I guess everyone's right, that's Bella Vista. That's already been annexed. They lost their battle here. So this area is now in Valley Center. There is a street light, Mr. Commissioner Howe, you mentioned street lights. There is a street light at that corner, but that street light was provided according to the service plan that was pertinent to that annexation, not our annexation. And you can see the city has a little bit less than about 40% of road maintenance there. The county maintains the rest of it. And my cul-de-sac and my neighbor's cul-de-sac, I forgot, I should know her name. What was her name again? Angie. They dump out to the north onto a county-maintained road. So this is the dividing line. Everything outside of that are in the county, including the properties along, as you see, along. These properties right here are in the county. And prior to the after the 2.5-year period, we did have a meeting with the City of Valley Center and Commissioner Ramsau, because he represents our area, and we talked about this. And one of the proposals that I put forth was for the city and the county to work together on trying to resolve this issue, because before that it was a split maintenance, so the road was never good. And one of the proposals that Mr. Ramsau put together was for the county to pave that road all the way from West Street to Hoover, and for the city to maintain that afterwards. That went to the City of Valley Center twice, and they turned out that they voted against that. So that's, in my opinion, that was an opportunity for the county and the city to work together to help the residents in a very confused annexation work, try to resolve an issue that, as citizens, that was an issue to us, and that was a concern to us, because the road had deteriorated when it was a dirt road to the point where the school buses wouldn't go down it in the rain. And I know that because our house is a safe house for school buses, and they would call during thunderstorms to tell us that they weren't coming down because the road condition was bad enough. So, going on to the next slide, similar to the first one, but again, if you have any questions on who owns what part of the road, who owns where the city, the county dividing line is. Like I said, the A, as you see from the Google map, that indicates the property. Outside of that area is all county owned. So just as residents on these private cul-de-sacs, it's very confusing. Here's a close-up view of the three areas that were addressed in 2.5 years ago, and that were part of the earlier petition. 8 homes there, 5 are in the county, 3 in the city. Dog runs across county road onto our road, runs back across. Who do we call? There's a police issue. Code enforcement are different in the city and the county. You can shoot firearms across the street. You can't shoot them on our side. So it's just there's a multitude of issues that are really confusing on these private cul-de-sacs that are now divided. In conclusion, in my presentation, I'll address the service plan issues with what the city provided today. These cul-de-sacs are unevenly divided now. The city has stated they're not going to annex. This was all part of a larger annexation plan that's not going to go forward now. So to call these the final boundaries, I don't think it's a good idea. Mr. Howell, you said that you couldn't do anything about all these issues today. Well, you can do something, because you can redefine the boundaries of Valley Center. That will clarify a lot of these issues. So by doing that, I think you can address that issue. The road should be maintained by one party. There are 2 different surfaces now. They each have issues. So it'd be just easier to call one entity to figure out what we're going to do. Either we go back and readdress what Commissioner Ramsau presented, the partial annexation of the cul-de-sacs, the code enforcement issues. In 2.5 years ago, I made a presentation about had a broken water well. That was an issue with the city and the county. Who was going to enforce who's going to fix the water well? And that was finally resolved. Like I said, the best possible solution for this is either annex all the properties, which is not going to happen because the laws have been changed, or to de-annex these homes that are divided up in the private cul-de-sacs, and that will help address some of the issues. If I could have just one more moment to go over what the city has provided today. And again, I'm talking on the homes off 81st Street here. The street maintenance at the end of our cul-de-sac is county road. Street improvements were done by the county. Storm siren, there's a storm siren at the end of 81st Street and the big ditch, or 85th Street and Hoover intersect. That's a county. That was there before the county had put that in before the annexation. The ditch cleaning, it's up to neighbors and the county. Culvert cleaning, that's not an issue. We're a private cul-de-sac. The culverts along 81st Street are again split between the city and county. City water service is not available. I think if we were, as residents, if we were going to get city water or get water that's not well water, I think it would be easier to get it from a rural water to the south of us, because Valley Center would have to cross the river, the Little Arkansas. And actually, when I was on the planning commission, one of the city managers at the time, he told me that he proposed there's a bridge there that was going over the river coming out towards our house through the woods and all that. He proposed that the city put a water line in at the time, not hook it up, but go ahead and put the services there if at any point that water was going to be provided west of the river, and that was voted down. So they'd have to tunnel anyway. It would be expensive, and I think it would be easier to get rural water than city water. City sewer, we're on septic. Fire protection, again, our neighbors across the street, they part of their county dollars goes to Valley Center. Police protection, it's very confusing. Code enforcement, that's confusing also. Who on the cul-de-sac is covered by the city, who's covered by the county, who has jurisdiction. Animal control, I think, has gone down. In other cities and services, cable, we've had cable. We have Cox cable. That's nothing the city does for us. We had trash services. They'll probably mention there's a trash service provided to all the city where recycling and all that's bundled in. Well, we had trash service from the same company we do now, and we have the $12 storm fee that we didn't have before. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope that clarified some. I hope the presentation helped clarify the dividing line between the county and city road maintenance.
Okay, so Gary, tell me again, you've lived there since 2000.
Correct.
And today you're making some objective statements about animal control, police response, code enforcement that have not improved over the last 2.5 years.
That's correct.
And overall, you have a statement up there that says the service plan is not. The service plan or the services provided by the city have not been equal to or better services compared before annexation.
Yes, I believe that.
That's your belief, having lived there before and after.
Yeah, it's also belief. It also could be documented. We can, if we had the time, we could go back and through from 2000 on, when I've called the city and county for animal control. That could be easily researched. I don't know what else. I mean, like I said. Cable, we have that through Cox. That's not a city-controlled service.
Thank you.
All right.
Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lee, I just wanted to go through a couple things with you. Again, I'm trying to be objective, so the issue of animal control I don't think is part of the service plan specifically, so I don't know that is a strong argument either way. The issue of confusion sounds to me like it's because of the annexation was incremental and basically took one side of the road and not the other. But I guess I'll be asking my counsel later on when I have an opportunity about did they have the opportunity to actually annex the road itself. In other words, the cul-de-sac that brings you guys back, you said is privately owned?
Correct.
Okay, so the township doesn't do anything with that. You guys have to do it all yourselves.
Yes, we figure. Yeah, once you turn off of 81st Street, which is, like I said, the county road, going south on our properties, that's maintained by the homeowner.
Okay. And so
that's never been addressed.
So one of my questions for our council later on will be whether or not the city had the opportunity to actually annex that driveway access, because to me that's a key thing. To me, that's the most objective and most compelling argument that I've heard so far, was that basically they're annexing, is that the right word, the properties, but none of the access to those properties.
That's correct.
I mean, that to me is a very compelling argument that I will certainly consider. But I'll be asking council whether that's legal or required or customary. I want to make sure you're aware, one of your slides said they have not added any staff for police protection, according to the document we received this morning, which I understand is late information coming to us, but they do make the argument in there that they did add 2 full-time police officers and 1 full-time fire person to provide more services to the larger city.
And remember, this was a large annexation. There were over 30 properties annexed, and we're just talking about, I think, 14 today.
Right.
Right. So there was the area north and east of Valley Center that was part of this same inadequate service plan.
Just for clarity, though, I want to make sure that the colleagues understand that there was information on that slide that is either under dispute or inaccurate, one of the two, because the city gave a document this morning that talks about they did add personnel, and the slide said that they did not add personnel. So I'm just highlighting that there's a discrepancy there, and according to the city, they did add personnel. I want to make that distinction. And again, the issue of confusion, I think it's unfortunate. Now, whether the city had the chance to annex the other side of the road to eliminate that confusion, I don't know. I'll be asking that from our council as well. But to me, the confusion is undesirable. But I'm not sure that the city had an opportunity to avoid confusion. And there's 2 ways to resolve that. Would be either by annexing. I can't say that word today. The homes on the one side, or to annex the other side, would be 2 ways to resolve that, so it's all the same. I do think it is confusing, and it is unfortunate. But anyway, I think that's all my questions. All right, thank you, Chairman.
Any other questions? Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Next, we have Anthony.
Good morning. My name is Anthony Surignano. I live at 5325 West 81st Street North. See if I can go back to the map here. Okay, my house is located, I am in the middle of the light blue squares. That's Gary's neighbor to the north. I don't really want to rehash everything that everyone's spoken to today. Gary and I collaborated on his presentation, so I'm comfortable with what he said this morning. I do want to share a personal experience I had with police service in the area. About 2 years ago, my house was struck by gunfire from a house in the county. A gentleman was setting in his deer rifle, and it got away from him, of course. But when we called 911, county was the one to show up. The city of Valley Center wasn't even aware that this incident had happened until the next day. So to me, that's a giant failure in police coverage. When our neighbor's house burned down, Caesar Morales, he'd be the top light blue square. I believe it was during the 5-year annexation period, so I don't know, it may or may not pertain here. But when we called 911 for his fire, county was the one who showed up for that one as well. I'm not sure when city was made aware of it, but county was the first one on scene for that. I'd also like to take a moment to thank all my neighbors for coming out today, taking off work, and we've also put forth the time since we have to do this this isn't something we get notified about, so I think it's important to mention to you, the commissioners, that we've taken the time out after the 5 years and again after 2.5 years to follow the process. Because as you're aware, or as you've seen, everyone who's spoken today is for de-annexation. No one's very happy for being annexed for various reasons. Gary mentioned the road. I don't want to rehash that. We also and the street lights. We haven't had any street lights in our area of the annexation from this phase of the annexation. The lights that are out there were done for previous phases. Gary mentioned the emergency alert siren. That's at the intersection of 85th and Hoover, and that was done by the county long before the annexation. Private utilities, those have all been provided previously. That's all I really want to touch on next. I think we've hit everything so far this morning, so I just want to make myself available for any comments or questions from you guys.
Anthony, how long have you lived there?
I believe we moved in 2007.
2007. Was that after the annexation?
It was, I think, the first year after annexation, if I remember right.
So you could speak the last 2.5 years with respect. I know you said you kind of agree with Gary Lee, but I want to just ask,
Sure,
he's talked about animal control, police response, code enforcement, 81st Street, all these things. Do you agree with those statements that those services have been lacking or chaotic?
Absolutely. The fire and police, that's probably number one on the list, and a close second is the road, the way 81st Street was annexed or not annexed. Point of fact, as you can see on the map, you cannot get to my private drive using a city road, a city-maintained road. If you were trying to get to my property using city-maintained roads, you can't, even though I am a resident of the city.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners for Anthony? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I don't think there's any other citizens who are affected by this. So we'll have Joel Lyle.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's always a pleasure to be here on these topics. I stand before you today representing the City of Valley Center. Again, I apologize. I know I've heard some comments about the resolution and supporting documents that were provided to the Commissioners just this morning. Those were approved by the City Council last night, so this was about the earliest opportunity we had to provide those. The Council began a couple years ago on some of our annexations to meet as a governing body to discuss the service plan and the services that have been provided to the residents, to also give residents an opportunity to appear before the City Council and discuss any services that have been provided or have not been provided. And to date, at all of those council meetings, no residents have ever appeared before the City Council to address items that are not being provided. Specifically, we monitor and track any complaints that we have. We did find a number of complaints we've had from individuals in annexed areas over the years regarding issues like animal control. Specifically, Mr. Lee was speaking to a well issue. And looking at our records, all of those issues have been resolved. And none of them are outstanding and weren't taken care of by the city. I heard a lot today talking about the property boundaries between the city and the county. Well, if you look at the map, all the way around the city, that exact same circumstance exists. You're going to have property owners on one side of the street that are in the city and on the other side of the street that are not in the city. So I don't necessarily understand how that's applicable to our situation that we're considering today because it's widespread all the way entirely around the city. I also heard a couple of residents say, I can tell no difference since being annexed. Well, to me, that's the very definition of equal or greater services, if you can tell no difference. For example, we've discussed some of the police and fire services of the city. The city uses county dispatch, which is paid for by the residents with their county taxes and the taxes they pay to 911. So if the service is less because it's confusing on who's to be dispatched out, there would be no difference. We have mutual aid agreements with the county on both fire and police that we respond to every call, whether it's in the city or outside the city if it's along our borders. So, and reviewing the police and fire records, nearly every instance, there's only been, I think there were 11 calls to this area over the annexation period. The city was the first on the scene to respond, even to those areas that are not in the city but on our border where we are exercising those mutual aid agreements. So with that, that's basically what I have. The information that was provided as part of the resolution is basically the same information with an update that was provided to the Commission 2.5 years ago, and also the property owners have had that. I find it very interesting because Mr. Lee spoke about a meeting that we had with Commissioner Ranzow with the city, and the major issue is the paving of 81st Street, which I wasn't a part of the city when the city did the annexations, and I've been told that the annexation had to occur that way to be in conformance with state statutes, so that we did not ever annex that portion of 81st Street, and we did divide the cul-de-sacs in half. But I can't speak to the legalities pertaining to the annexation. But I know that we worked together and got the city paved its portion of the road and the county paved its portion. Then the proposal was put on the table that if the county were to pave its portion, that the city would then have to assume henceforth and forever the maintenance of that road. Well, as we know, with road budgets, they've all been slashed. The city is no different than the county, and the last thing the city would want to do at this time is take on road maintenance of a road that's not even within the city. Because I can certainly turn the table and ask the county if you would come into Valley Center and take care of and maintain a road that's not in the county but is yet in the city. I think I know what the answer would be on that question. So that's how that kind of came to be, and it is an unfortunate circumstance, but we do maintain and take care of our section of the road that is within the city, and oftentimes we do assist the county or township on issues that may pertain to that section of road outside of the city. Animal control, some irony in that is that it's not part of the service plan, but I've noticed in a number of documents it's been presented as a service that the city doesn't provide. The on-call, the protocols of Sedgwick County Animal Control specifically dictate that they don't provide very many services after hours or on weekends. Services that we do, I contend, we provide with our animal control officer and our police department. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Yeah. Joel, with respect to the road proposal, clarify, and one of the proposals that the city or the county would also pave the portion of the city's portion of 81st Street, and that's why they would maintain it thereafter, right? Mm-hmm. So we were actually going to pave inside the city's portion.
Yeah. The proposal was to improve a stretch of road the city had previously improved. We had just come off of an improvement.
And you made that recommendation to the city council twice?
Yes.
Okay.
We also said we'd take care of it for 5 years.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We also said we'd take care of it for 5 years, and then after that, they would, okay. Just want to get everything on the record. And okay. Any questions for Joel? Commissioner Peter John?
Yeah, yes. Let me throw out, so the post-annexation report that I received this morning actually was approved by the City Council in Valley Center last night, which is why we just got it this morning.
Yes, both the resolution and the supplemental documents were put before the governing body. The report is essentially the same as the report that was presented 2.5 years ago to both the City Council and the County Commission.
Okay. Let me, just in terms of looking through it, so when on the second page of that supplemental report, when it says that annexation, you're referring back to the original annexation in 2007, Mr. Powell?
That's correct.
Okay, I wanted to clarify that and get that on the record, because obviously we had the earlier hearing and getting this document at such short notice. But I understand if you guys had a city council meeting, if the council just acted last night, this is new information. So let me ask you, have the folks who would be in this area as part of this hearing, have they seen these documents yet?
I believe some of them were distributed, the document just prior to the commission meeting convening. And again, I believe they've all would have seen them because they've been substantially the same from the 2.5-year period, but I can't speak for sure.
Okay, so okay, so the folks who are here at this meeting have seen this document, but folks who aren't here have not. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I can't provide beyond a surety that who has seen it and who has not seen it.
Well, no, I meant Sedgwick County. We've got, when we have these hearings, we've got to get information out to all the people in the affected areas who have, whether they have a home or it's developed property or they just have land in the affected area.
Okay. Well, yeah, then to answer your question, then no. The only possibility that people would have seen that is if they saw it from the previous annexation or if they were here today. So those that are not here today would not have seen that, may not have seen that.
Okay. So you're saying this is the same document we had 2.5 years ago?
Essentially, with some updates.
Essentially with updates. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And what was the vote on this resolution last night?
6 in favor and 2 opposed. And the 2 opposed provided no explanation as to why they were opposed.
Any other questions of Mr. Pyle? I don't see any from commissioners. Any other constituents that are affected by this annexation that weren't on the list and need to speak? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Powell.
Thank you.
At this point, shall we close the hearing?
That would be appropriate.
We will now close the hearing with respect to the petition for de-annexation from the City of Valley Center. Any comments, Mr. Tarnicott?
I'll respond to any questions. I think there may be a few, and then we can talk.
Commissioners? Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob, the testimony that we heard today, if I heard it correctly, are there two individuals who spoke who bought property after the annexation in 2007? Is that right?
I couldn't hear the very last part of your question.
Is that two people purchased their property after the annexation?
That's my understanding, yes.
And does that have any influence on this determination that
No,
came in
no.
after the annexation?
Any landowner that owns property during this period leading up to that 2.5 years, and all these property owners own property during that 2.5-year period, if they believe they've not gotten services, they are entitled to petition for and have a hearing here. So, no.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question now.
Well, Commissioner Peter John had his light on, and he just stepped out. Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I do have a couple of questions. Can you just tell us once again, you mentioned earlier, I think in your initial presentation, that the city was required to incrementally annex this. They couldn't do both sides of the road at the same time. Is that what I heard you say?
I think I used the term sequential,
which
is somewhat more or less the same thing. And what that simply means is that for a city to be able to unilaterally annex property that is without the landowner's consent, they need to be adjoining that property. So they need to be touching in some way. And it can be a corner touch. But as long as they have at least one point of common boundary, then that property is subject to annexation, unilateral annexation, unless it's falls under an exemption like over 21 acres in ag use, that kind of thing. So they have to, so for example, in this situation, they probably had properties to the east, immediately to the east, right outside that red boundary, that had been annexed by a prior annexation. So that made those properties immediately to the west now touching or adjoining. But the city was not then adjoining the properties on the west side of the cul-de-sac. So they had to annex the east side of the cul-de-sac before they could say they were adjoining the west side of the cul-de-sac. Does that make sense?
Yes. Is it safe to say that once this annexation is or was, once it's resolved, then at that time the city would have the opportunity, if they wanted to go the next step, for example, to address this confusion issue? That would be something that the city would certainly have the right to, under state law, they could consider that next row of properties at that point?
They are now joining the west side of the cul-de-sac, and those properties are eligible for unilateral annexation.
As of right now, had they made that step, and then the properties under protest today would have been de-annexed, what would that have done? Would that have been? So, in other words, is it seem likely that maybe the reason the city hasn't gone any further, perhaps, is because there are properties under protest and have been so for quite a long time now, since 2006. So,
I really can't speculate as to why the city chose not to move forward. There could have been several reasons.
Okay. Now, with respect to the private roadway, did the city have an opportunity to actually take that roadway themselves and actually provide maintenance to that drive? Even though, right now the residents are doing that on their own. Did the city have the chance to actually make that part of their annexation?
Well, there are two concepts here to understand fully. First, there's the annexation issue, which is that, yes, they could have annexed that roadway. I don't know if they did or didn't. It's possible they annexed up to the midpoint, because a private drive is owned in equal parts by the adjoining parties on each side of the land. So in that private cul-de-sac, the persons on the east probably own to the center point of the private drive, and the persons on the west own to the center point as well from the west side. So the city could have included that entire private drive. Well, I take that back. They would have been able to annex only up to the property, the part of the drive that was included as properties that they were adjoining already. Now that's the annexation issue. That's whether or not the private drive is in or outside the city limits. In terms of maintenance, cities and counties don't generally maintain private drives. That's a question of, it would have required a dedication or an acquisition of the private drive as to turn it into a public road, at which point it would be subject to city or county maintenance, depending on whether it was inside or outside the city.
So there may be other properties inside cities that are considered private drives that are not responsibility of the governing agency?
Yes, and I think we've got private drives in the county as well that we don't maintain. That's a private matter for those landowners to handle.
With respect to the service plan, when this was initially drafted, and I assume that the city had hearings and such, at the initial part of this, did the Board of County Commissioners ever see this service plan and have a chance to weigh in on its woeful inadequacy, as you described earlier?
No, not at that time. Now, when we have a notice of a unilateral annexation, the cities are required to provide us a service plan up in advance of the annexation, and we have an opportunity to comment on that. And we've done several of those over the last couple of years now since that law changed. But at this time, when this annexation was done, the city was required to provide a resolution stating that they were intending to annex the property, but they were not required to provide us the service plan.
Okay, I understand that. So then, it is safe to assume also that the city did obviously have a public hearing on the annexation initially, and the only person that actually had to approve that service plan was the city themselves. Nobody else, no other entity had a chance to actually argue, other than the actual homeowners, that this was an inadequate plan.
The homeowners or the landowners would have had an opportunity after the annexation became effective for 30 days to file a lawsuit to challenge whether the service plan is adequate or not. So they did have a district court alternative of challenging the service plan. Again, the service that wasn't done, so we have the service plan we have.
Okay. With respect to 81st Street, is it reasonable or is it required in any way that they would have to be able to access their properties by driving on city property only, or is it driving through the county on a county-owned road to access their property that's been annexed by the city? Is this unusual, or is it required to have continuous city road access to the private drive? Is there any requirement to do that?
Actually, it's a city is not allowed to annex right-of-way unless they're adjoining the right-of-way at the time of the annexation or as part of the annexation. They are not required to annex the road, but they certainly are not allowed to annex a strip of road that they are not currently touching or that is touching property that they are in the process of annexing. So they would not, because they're not adjoining that portion of 81st Street, they are not eligible to, and the other side of that coin is that if a city has annexed property up to the right-of-way line, but it's not annexed the right-of-way, we have the option, you have the option as the county commission to direct them to take that right-of-way into the city since they are adjoining it. But here, where they are not adjoining it, the city does not have the authority to annex it until they adjoin the road, and you don't have the authority to tell them to annex it because it is not adjoining the city limits.
Okay. Based on the resolution, the resolution we received this morning from city's action last night, they mentioned some things in here that are not mentioned specifically in the service plan. Should I consider these items today objectively? One of the things was culvert cleaning, ditch cleaning, animal control, and other city services. Are any of those things for me to consider today as a result of any of the arguments, any of the testimony I've heard today, or even this piece of paper I received this morning from the city council that made this decision last night? Or am I supposed to look at the service plan specifically for what they're required to provide? Am I allowed to consider these items that are in this document here?
I think you need to make your decision based on these matters. First, you have the service plan. The service plan is what the city said, these are the services we're going to provide to these areas. And when they did this service plan, they wrote it for all of the areas being annexed, not just these portions that are being subject to the hearing today. So that's where you start with the service plan. You now have a petition from these 13 properties. So you really are focusing on whether the services have been extended to these 13 properties. So if the city provides you a report that says, by the way, up in the northeast area, we also did this, this, and this, that's very nice, but it's not relevant or material to your decision today because you're focusing on whether services have been provided to these 13 properties. That was a long lawyer's answer to a short question, probably.
I'm not quite sure. I'm not sure I quite got it though. Let's make sure. So, again, the service plan is my base.
Yes.
And I'm trying to be objective and look at that specifically, although it's not well written. Specifically, being objective. Is there anything addition to that I should consider today?
No. If it's not pertaining directly to these 13 properties, services being provided to these 13 properties, it's really not relevant to your decision and should not be considered.
Okay.
Is that better?
That is better.
Thank you.
All right, Chairman, I just need a couple minutes to think about this. Thank you.
Commissioner Peter John?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to make a comment to the fact that as part of this ex parte communications and have not received any and only looked at the material that's coming in here or has been presented as part of this hearing this morning. I did receive the presentation, I guess, Monday, but I wanted to get the ex parte comments onto the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bob, with respect to the service plan and animal control, a variety of other things. Now, the basis for everything starts with the state statute, and they're supposed to get equal to the services after annexation compared to what they had before.
Yes, the statute actually specifically talks about generally major municipal services, and obviously police and fire, those kinds of things are major municipal services. It does not spell out to a great deal of detail what services have to be mentioned in the service plan, particularly other than that general title, major municipal services.
Well, the fact that the city included things like animal control in their post-annexation, wouldn't that seem to indicate that they consider it an appropriate function to be considered?
Yes.
And I mean, we already talked about the inadequacy of the original service plan. The fact that it's not in there to begin with is just simply an indication of the inadequacy to begin with, not necessarily whether or not it's reasonable to expect them to provide that service. Clearly, I think they've indicated that it is reasonable to expect that service. Is that a reasonable?
That was a service provided prior to annexation. It is now being provided after annexation, and it is intended to be equal to or better than, and I think you've heard statements, but really to both sides of that.
Commissioner Unruh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our job today is not really to determine the adequacy of the service plan. Our job today is just to determine whether or not it has been filled to a certain level of performance. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so there's been general consensus, I think, among commissioners that it's not a very strong service plan, an inadequate service plan. And I think at our hearing 2.5 years ago, representatives from the city admitted that it was a pretty thin service plan. But if our legal responsibility is to say whether or not they've fulfilled the requirements of the service plan as recorded, and we've heard testimony from the city and from citizens, I guess both ways on that, but I know at the original hearing, I was the only commissioner who came to the conclusion that they had fulfilled the service plan, and at that time I made comments that I thought it was woefully inadequate along with everyone else. But in order for me to arrive at a conclusion in today's question, the question is have they fulfilled that service plan? And I believe that I'm still of the opinion that as weak, thin, inadequate as it may be, I think the city has fulfilled that service plan, and because of that, I will not support the de-annexation. I think that's my legal responsibility in this quasi-judicial determination. At the same time, now that I still have the floor, I do want to say that I haven't received any personal ex parte communication. I did receive an email and a written document that had some information about this, but I've listened to the testimony again today to make my determination. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Norton?
I have received some ex parte communication through email and written form. I have not talked to anyone personally about this issue. When this came before us 2.5 years ago, I was chairman, but I was absent from that meeting, so I didn't vote one way or another on this particular issue to move it forward or backwards. The one thing I've come to know after 15 years of dealing with these kind of annexations is that it's a real mixed bag as to whether the information in the that is required is adequate enough in a service plan. And we've seen a mixed bag from very weak ones to ones that are relatively strong and articulate exactly what the city's going to do. Having said that, though, the law is pretty murky from the state level as to what our responsibility is as far as judging whether the service plan is adequate or not. It is only to whether they have met whatever it is. And if there's only one item in the service plan and it appears that there's been at least a try at providing that, then that's all we can consider. If there's 30 items and some of them haven't been taken care of, then we have to weigh that out. But if it's a pretty weak service plan, we can't invent things that we think should have been in that plan to judge. We can only judge what's in the service plan. Now, Bob, I understand the legislation has changed since we first dealt with this 7.5 years ago. Is that correct?
There's been some changes, yes.
Yeah. And one of those changes is that the service plan should come to the county commission for us to give them written dialogue, written ideas about whether the service plan is adequate or not. We can't change it. We don't vote on it, but we at least get to see it ahead of time. Is that correct?
That's correct. We reviewed several of them, and occasionally have made some informal comments to the cities involved as to suggested changes that would better the service plan. So, yeah, we've been working with cities for that.
Right. But 7.5 years ago, that was not a requirement. It was not given to the counties to look at, to peruse, to give feedback. It was only through the municipalities that was devised. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure that that was on the record, because today, as I look at this, and I didn't vote on it last time, I agree that it's a pretty weak service plan. I think the citizens believe that. I'm not so sure that the city manager doesn't believe that, but we do have what we have today to deal with. I agree with Commissioner Unruh that it's not likely that I'll vote against the service plan today, even though I can see that it is relatively weak. Bob, if we were to move ahead with de-annexation, how soon could the city go back and petition for annexation for those properties with a new service plan, a new thought process, and everything? What does the law say about that?
I may have to double check that. The law changed we were operating under the old version of the statute, which was a 5-year review followed by a 2.5-year period of post-annexation finding where the city had an opportunity to present it, and they have now changed those timeframes to a 3-year post-annexation review and a 1.5-year period for fulfilling it. But and the time frame, the old time frame, where the city had to wait before they could try to re-annex the property, I think was, I'm trying to find it here. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing it. I do know, I believe that now it may have been 1 year. The rule that we're operating under now is 1 year. So the city would have to wait a full year before they could try to re-annex these properties if they were ordered to be de-annexed. I think that is now a longer period. I want to say 3 years. I'm not sure that's right, but it's longer. But for the purposes of this annexation hearing, the city would have a 1-year period to wait.
So we're still operating under an older set of resolutions or statutes from the state as opposed to the newest form. Is that correct?
I apologize. I am looking at the amended statute. It's vice versa. The current time period appears to be the 1 year because I'm looking at the statute now, and it mentions the 2.5-year period. Sorry, you put me on the spot. I'm going back and forth. I'm trying to remember now if I've got the right statute. And let me look at one more figure. No, I'm sorry. Let's go back to my original statement. Yes, 1 year period. Sorry.
1 year. Okay. That's all people think about what I've just heard.
I apologize.
That's fine.
Commissioner Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very difficult issue that's before us today, and I've done my very best to be absolutely neutral and just listening to the evidence that was presented today. And I will disclose I did also receive an email and I think one handwritten letter that I did look at, but I don't believe they're landowners and I don't believe they're part of this de-annexation hearing today. I don't believe they're relevant. And I did look at them, but I'm not considering those necessarily I'm not considering them for this decision today. I'm looking at specifically evidence that was presented today. I would say, based on what I've heard from the hearing and from our council, what I perceive right now is what was done was legal. I don't think it's ideal, and it certainly wasn't well executed. It was not well written, and unfortunately, this is an extremely important document that we're having to use as our basis today. Very important document that was poorly written, and I wish that the homeowners at the time would have realized that they had an opportunity to access district court to remedy the woeful inadequacy of this document. But unfortunately, that day has come and gone, and we are left now to judge on whether or not the city has said what they would do has been executed. And so, as of right now, looking at the detail within the service plan and then looking at information that was provided to us from the homeowners, and I asked many questions, and I made many notes about that, but and also the document that we received this morning. I don't see there's an objective reason that I could object to, I guess, my opinion that the city has provided services. I don't see there's any way I could support a de-annexation position at this time. I don't believe there's been evidence presented that is relevant to the service plan to go there. So I'm taking my emotions out of this and looking for specific items that I could argue are reasons why I could support a de-annexation. I haven't heard it yet. So as of right now, I'm inclined to support the city in this case at this time. Unless something else is presented by one of my colleagues, I would probably support the side of this that says the city has provided services that they said they would. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Well, thank you. I want to try and re-clarify, because I did receive, I think all of us may have received an email from a party who isn't a property owner, and in fact I don't even think lives in the City Valley Center on this matter anymore, but I'm not considering any of that as part of this issue today. I've struggled with this issue in terms of if we talk about major services or get into minor services and what the details are in terms of which statute we're operating under. But I've in the past voted to that the city had not provided the services and tenant fulfillment, and I haven't received information today that gives me much reason to change my opinion from the past, and so I wanted to get that on the record because, and also I think from 2.5 years ago, the folks with the City of Valley Center who are with us today were not involved with this original service plan back in 2007, and I think that's noteworthy to mention too, because we're having to live with the consequences of things that occurred in the past that for the folks who weren't there. But I am uncomfortable with going forward and changing my position from what I had 2.5 years ago, and so my vote today will reflect the fact that my position on this issue has not changed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, I guess I'm the last one to speak, and I'll share some of my thoughts. We've talked a lot about the service plan and its woeful inadequateness, and the fact it doesn't meet the statutory requirements. I think we, even though we're not here to judge whether or not it was adequate or not, it's a very, I think we need to take into account what the legislative intent of the service plan is. The city has an obligation when it unilaterally annexes someone to provide services that are equal or better to what they had prior. And that service plan is a vehicle to ensure that that happens. When a city creates a service plan that is woefully inadequate, it does not provide or ensure that services will be equal to or inadequate, that puts us in a very difficult position. I mean, for example, if they leave something out, does that mean they don't have to provide it? If they leave fire protection out, does that mean they don't have to provide fire protection? Police protection, if they give us a service plan that's blank, do they have to do nothing? Is that consistent with the legislative intent of providing equal or greater service to the people who have been annexed? I say not. So we have to look then and listen to the petitioners today. We have heard complaints about a variety of things. We've heard complaints about animal control, police response, roads, code enforcement. We've had testimony that says services are not equal to or better than what they had prior, and we've had people who have lived before and after the annexation. We've had cities say the opposite, so we have two sides to the story. So where do we go? One of the most disturbing things is police protection, which has been described by the people who live there every day of the year, 365 days a year, that it's chaotic and confused. We have testimony that that did not exist prior to annexation by the city. So clearly this confusion and chaotic situation with respect to law enforcement, which is a critical part of any services being provided, in their estimation has actually deteriorated and has been caused by unilateral annexation to begin with. The city has had a total of 7.5 years to address this issue, and more specifically the last 2.5 years, to address all of the concerns the citizens have. And yet they continue to have chaotic law enforcement, problems with code enforcement, animal control, etc. City will say otherwise, but I have to decide which side you go down on. Quite frankly, the service plan provided by the city in the past, and I know Mr. Powell is not responsible for that, he wasn't here then, but nevertheless, the fact that they were basically disregarded state statute from the very beginning in fulfilling their statutory requirement to provide a service plan that would ensure equal or greater services would be provided hurts their credibility. And with that, I don't believe they have met the requirements of their service plan, nor have they met the statutory requirement to provide equal or greater services to the people who are annexed. I'm not going to, as far as splitting the people down, the confusion is clearly caused by where they've annexed and they've stopped annexing. The only way to resolve that is to de-annex, because I don't believe if they were going to have no evidence that they did, the reason they didn't annex it was because of this, and I don't believe that's true. But and I don't believe they will de-annex this land in order to solve the issue or make it less chaotic. But when I have a constituent tell me prior to annexation they didn't have chaos and confusion in law enforcement, and now they do as a direct result, and it's very clear that police protection is required in the service plan. You can add in all the other things, but I can't sit here and allow and say that they've met the requirements on the service plan if that continues to happen, and they've had adequate time to do that, to rectify that situation. And regardless of what happens here today, that issue needs to be addressed moving forward. With that, I want to make a motion. I'm going to move that we find the city has not provided services in accordance with the plan, nor has it met the statutory requirement to provide equal or greater level of service to the petitioning landowners.
Second.
Any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm sympathetic to the homeowners out there that are struggling with the confusion, and I wish that we had a way to resolve this in a legal fashion. I don't know that that alone is justification for de-annexation. I don't think that is not. It's not ideal. I wish there was a way to resolve this, but unfortunately, the problem I think is that annexation, unfortunately, oftentimes takes one side of the road and not the other. It does create confusion. Again, this probably is a state legislative issue, and probably not something we can resolve here. With respect to fire protection, if I understand correctly, the agreement that the city has with the county is that if you call 911, the city doesn't get involved in this at all. 911 services sends the closest emergency vehicle to that call, regardless whether it be a city or a county. So that should not be any different. In fact, if you were away from the city and you call 911, I think they would only send the county. Maybe I'm wrong. If you're close to the city, perhaps even whether you're annexed or not annexed, they would still send a city crew. I don't know, but I don't know that the city has any ability to affect this. Is my point. If you call 911, they'll dispatch the nearest emergency service appropriate for that call. And so I don't know that I would argue that this is any less than equal. It's at least equal. Considering they've actually added at least one staff person for fire, it potentially is even better than it would have been in the past. And with respect to police protection, the same thing. The city did say they had 11 calls, and they were the first on scene. And again, I believe that 911 would dispatch the closest there. Even if it was on the county side of the road, the police would still show up. I'm not sure there's any argument that the city would not respond if you were on the county side of the road. They'll dispatch the nearest. Street lights is one of the items in the service plan, and there was testimony today that was in fact provided. Emergency alert sirens were in fact provided. Stormwater, unfortunately, I don't like this policy, but the cities, I think, assess the same fees on all landowners inside the city, whether you benefit from this or not. I wish there was a way to exempt certain properties that don't really create the problem, but that's not part of the law. So the cities assess that universally across every property owner in the city, whether it makes sense or not. With respect to water and sewer and roads, those landowners have the right to petition to get those improvements and services in place, but they would have to pay for it. So I guess I'm just saying all that. And again, the final thing on the service plan is it relates to electrical power, which is being provided currently. It was in the service plan they weren't going to provide natural gas lines, and AT&T and Cox Cable would be available. It sounds like they are. So again, going down the service plan specifically and looking for objective reasons why I could support de-annexation, I don't have anything. So I'll be voting no on the motion. Thank you.
Commissioner Peter John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to check with Mr. Barnicott. Is the motion the chairman made, is it complete, or do we need to have a second part to it?
No, I think if the motion passes, we have to talk about the second finding you need to make. But if you, depending on whether this motion passes or not, we may not need to get to that second motion.
Okay. I just wanted to get the clarification. Thank you.
Well, I'll say to my colleagues who wish there was something that they could do about it, this police issue, there is something. We can support this motion that we made. In fact, this is the only thing we can do. This is what the legislature has set up for the citizens to be able to petition the government and say, hey, the city has not met the requirements set forth by the legislature. If you can't get police protection right, then there's a problem. Police and fire are probably the two most important things people ever do. And if that's not right, we have an obligation to say, no, this doesn't meet the standard. We have testimony when people live there who said it's chaotic and confused. The gentleman has lived there before and after, and he's saying that didn't exist beforehand. So the solution is to go the de-annexation route. He says it's different. It's chaotic and confused. That's his supporting evidence. I'm not going to stand here and call him a liar. He lives it 365, 24/7, 365. He knows what happens, and we can talk about theoretically what should happen, this, that, and other, but he knows what really happens on the ground in a real world. In the real world, I mean, we can say 911 does this, city does that, but in the minds of the citizens there, and it's not working. So we can fix that, and this is our recourse. I'm not sure what else the citizens can say. And they've made it very clear, and I appreciate them coming out. I believe what they're saying is honest and truthful, and I take them at their word. They live it every day, and I don't believe that adequate services have been provided. Clearly it hasn't in the area of law enforcement. It's actually gotten worse. So I'll be supportive of this motion. Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
No.
Commissioner Norton?
No.
Commissioner Howell?
No.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Chairman Ransall?
Aye. Motion fails 3-2. Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that we find the city has provided services in accordance with the plan and consistent with the timetable in the plan.
Second.
I won't be supportive of this motion. I must apologize to my constituents. This is another sad day for Sedgwick County.
Thank you.
That's all I'll say. Call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Nope.
No.
Chairman Ransall?
Next item, please.
New business, item N, report of the Board of Bids and Contracts, regular meeting on April 2nd, 2015.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Kristen McGovern, Purchasing Department. The meeting of the Board of Bids and Contracts for April 2nd resulted in 2 items for your consideration. Item number 1, bridge improvements, Public Works. The recommendation is to accept the low bid from Donlinger and Sons Construction Company Incorporated in the amount of $286,974.65. Item number 2, crack seal material, Public Works. The recommendation is to accept the low bid from McConnell and Associates Corp. For an initial purchase of $21,205.40 and establish contract pricing for 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, and I recommend approval of these 2 items.
What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the recommendations of the Board of Bids and Contracts.
Second.
Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Chairman Ransall.
Aye. Next item.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Consent agenda.
Commissioners, you have the consent agenda before you, and I recommend you approve it.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Call the vote, please.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Chairman Ransall.
Aye. I don't believe we have any legislative issues to discuss, but we are now to the other portion. Commissioner Peterjohn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I came across some information from the Census Department for 2014. The estimates are out for the populations for all the counties across the country. And in 2010, the county population in Sedgwick County was 498,365 people. And the latest Census Department estimate has increased that number to 508,803 people as of last year. I also would like to report, Mr. Chairman, April 8th is an important day in American history. In 1913, on April 8th, the 17th Amendment was ratified, and the 17th Amendment provides for the direct election of United States senators, and a lot of people don't recall that for the first, prior to 1913, the election of U.S. senators actually occurred by state legislatures, and that was a key change in how this country elects that branch, very important branch of our federal Congress. In 1952, on April 8th, President Truman ordered the seizure of the nation's steel mills to avert a strike, and this was later ruled illegal by the United States Supreme Court. On a more positive note, on April 8th, a lot of folks out there have seen 42 and the movie and know Jackie Robinson's story, but on April 8th, 1974, Hank Aaron hit his record-breaking 715th home run that broke Babe Ruth's record. And a year later, in 1975, Frank Robinson broke the color barrier, becoming the first Major League Baseball manager who is African American. So April 8th is a very important day in American history, and I wanted to get that on the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Unruh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to give a quick shout-out to Intrust Bank Arena and manager SMG, and that they were rated number 16 in the United States for arenas for the first quarter of 2015. So,
I believe we're done with the other. Now we'll move to the executive session. Commissioner Peterjohn.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Board of County Commissioners recess into executive session for five minutes to consider consultation with legal counsel.
I think it's 20 minutes.
Oops. I've got multiple ones here. I'm sorry. I stand corrected. Now, 20 for 20 minutes for legal advice and personnel matters of non-elected personnel, and also for consultation with legal counsel are matters privileged in the attorney-client relationship relating to both legal advice and contract negotiations. Board of County Commissioners return to this room from executive session no sooner than 12:50 p.m.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Call the vote, please.
Commissioner Unruh.
Aye.
Commissioner Norton.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn.
Aye.
Chairman Ransall.
Aye. Now, move to executive session.